What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Tape. And today, a very special collab mock draft and a first here on the 32 Beat Writers channel. We're joined by not just one special guest, but make it two today as I welcome to the program Jacob Infante from PFSN and, of course, Ian Cummings. Also, you can find all his work over at PFSN. Guys, what is going on? How are you guys doing? Appreciate you guys being flexible with me. We haven't done a three-man mock draft, so I'm really excited to get not just one added perspective, but two different guys who know this draft inside and out, have great minds when it comes to evaluating the draft in and of itself. So, guys, how are you guys doing? And I appreciate you carving out some time and joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's a lot of fun. 3 people, never been done before. We're breaking new ground. I'm excited to take this historic step with you, and I'm excited, but also to do a mock draft. You know, we're a week out from the big event, and we know that 1 and maybe 2 are chalk, right? But past that point, there's a lot of potential variance. So happy to be with you, talking draft again, and happy to get it going here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure. Like, I know, I'm sure I can speak for Ian too. Like, this is my favorite time of year, you know, watching all the picks come in. We've been doing all this preparation and all this, you know, predictions, who's going to go where. So it's really exciting to think like it's right around the corner now. I'm stoked for it. I'm excited to be here doing this mock draft with you guys. And I'm very grateful. We are using the PFSN mock draft simulator. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. I appreciate you guys using that. So it's you know, it's a lot of fun to, you know, run it up and you know, make our picks. So it should be a lot of fun.
You took the words out of my mouth. We're using the beautiful PFSN mock draft simulator. I am going to have Jacob pick number 1 overall. That will ensure that he gets to pick for the Bears at 25. If you know Jacob, you already know I want to have his inside for the Bears. And then we're going to have Ian picking at number 2. And I think that might set us up for some really interesting possibilities. Feel free, if you guys have an idea for a trade, you don't like the board at a certain point, let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and get whoever the respective GM is, we'll get them on the line and we'll see what we can navigate through. But with all that said and done, Jacob, lead us off. Las Vegas Raiders. I have a feeling I know where you're going with this pick, but I'll turn it over to you.
Bummer. This is such a tough pick. I wonder who I'm going to take here. Yeah, it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. I mean, he's the best quarterback in the class. Raiders need a quarterback. It's, you know, the most valuable position in football. He'll be the pick. I don't feel it. You know, you don't need to, you know, break it down any further than that. It's a lock at this point.
So then something that, I don't know, maybe it is a lock, maybe it's not. I could think about this in 2 different ways, but Ian, you're on the clock here with the Jets, and today's breaking news and this ever, you know, evolving cycle of breaking news was that the Jets canceled David Bailey's top 30 visit. So some are reading that as, hey, they know he's the guy, he's going to be the pick at 2, but if you look at Kyle Sheet, for whatever that's worth, Arvell Reese is back to being the betting favorite for the number 2 spot. So where do you want to go here at number 2?
Yeah, you know, and it's tricky, right? Because teams pick guys that they don't host on top 30 visits often. You know, it is something that happens often, but what doesn't happen often is you see him scheduled and then he's taken off the list, right? And the betting markets are pretty elastic, right? Based on the news that comes out. But to me, I don't know. I think about what Aaron Glenn needs in year 1, right? I think Arvell Reese could be a really valuable, versatile piece. But if you're Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, I have to think they're feeling a little bit of pressure after that year 1 that wasn't very inspiring. There was some talk about Glenn maybe being a one and done, right? Obviously, that didn't happen. But I think looking for a guy who provides a little bit of a higher floor immediately as a pass rush catalyst, right? In the 3-down edge. And I think David Bailey, the run defense is a little less consistent, but to me, as long as you vet the off-field character stuff, right? We know he's had a few incidents on the field. There was an incident with the cameraman, right? There was an incident where he stomped on a player's head, right? So to me, it seems like mostly temperament, right? Try and get that under wraps. You do have a guy, 6'4", 251, near 34 inch arms, hyper elite athleticism, hyper elite production. I have to think that higher production floor might be more appealing to Aaron Glenn. I could be wrong, but to me, that's where I'm leading just in an instinct standpoint. Missing this visit, right? Canceling this, it does kind of, it invites a little bit of confusion, but I think David Bailey is probably the better pick for a Jets team that needs to get some momentum going. So we're getting that edge rush catalyst. We're going with David Bailey here.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the direction I felt like it made sense for Bailey to become the guy who is, you know, for at least a little bit there, the betting favorite to be the number 2 pick. Because, yeah, Glenn's seat was so hot. You get an instant impact. You kind of know it's a bird in the hand, I think was what Daniel Jeremiah said when he was on Peter Schrager's podcast. And there's just more certainty versus the projection of what Reese could be. So it's going to be really interesting to see where that pick ultimately does go. Then me at 3, you made it easy by taking, David Bailey at 2. I will go Arvell Reese here at 3. I think their timeline kind of matches up a little bit more with like, hey, Reese, he was even saying it to Benjamin Solak, like my pass rush reps is basically me just being like bigger, faster, more athletic than the guy across from me. I don't have a pass rush plan per se yet. And the Cardinals are, right now their quarterbacks are Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett. Need I say more? They are not competing next year. So I think their timeline kind of matches up a little bit better with Reese anyway. So I will have Arvell Reese be the pick there at 3. And with that, Jacob, this is one where, we've been trying to go predictive, but honestly, like it's been a little bit of a crapshoot. So I will leave it to you here. What do you want to do, predictive, or what you would do here for the Tennessee Titans? I'm very curious where you would take this. Carnell Tate, Urban Bain, Jeremiah Love. What are you thinking here for Tennessee?
Man, this is a difficult one for sure. I look at this and, obviously you would have loved if, David Bailey or Arvell Reese being available here. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think this is pretty realistic to what is going to turn out here. I am considering Jeremiah Love solely for the fact that, he's, an incredible running back. I think, a true blue chip prospect in a class that really doesn't have much blue chip talent. But I know there's also the risk attached here of, Ruben Bain's, situation with the reckless driving and, the accident and stuff like that. I'm not going to take a declarative statement one way or another on that whole situation. I'm purely looking at it from an evaluation perspective. I think it would make a lot more sense for the Titans to draft a premier, more valuable position than running back, especially when you look at that Titans offense. They still have a long way to go. Yeah. And I think you're looking at what happened with Ashton Genty last year. An incredible prospect coming out of Boise State, had a solid rookie year, but ultimately didn't live up to expectations. I think a lot of that was because of his surroundings. It almost to an extent doesn't matter how good a running back is if you don't have at least a decent infrastructure in place. And I think that the Titans don't have a good enough infrastructure in place yet to take a running back at 4. So I'm going to take Ruben Bain here. I think that's somebody who's going to really improve that Jets pass rush. I know they made a trade to, acquire Jermaine Johnson. I still think that defensive line is still a work in progress. If you could have Bain, Johnson, Simmons all up front on the same defensive line, I think that's a step in the right direction for Tennessee. In a class like this, I think their offense is a bigger work in progress than the defense, but I think you got to take best player available here at a premier position. And to me, that's Bain.
And when you look at like Robert Saleh, he loves these big ends who can collapse inside when push comes to shove, right? Like John Franklin Myers is kind of the guy that fills that role right now, but could easily see a timeline here in 3 years where Ruben Bain's that guy instead for Saleh. So I like that fit a ton, and it's kind of interesting that feels like the first time I've seen Bain going for in quite a bit of time. All right, Ian, what do you want to do here for the New York Giants at 5?
This is tricky, man, because Jackson Dart, right? Year 2. I always lean toward whenever there's a young QB, right? Whenever I mock for the Giants or the Saints with Tyler Shuck, one of the biggest things that I think about is like you want to support this young QB when he's coming up, right? Because if you don't give him the optimal support, that might erode his development before it even takes hold, right? So Carnell Tate has been a big thought for me here, but I'm actually going to go against that. I'm not going to go with Carnell Tate here. I'm looking at the defense, and I'm looking at my top overall player still being on the board. That's Sonny Styles from Ohio State. I know the Giants signed Tremaine Edmonds. They got Micah McFadden back as a retainment in free agency, but I don't know if either of those guys precludes me from taking Sonny Styles. The caliber of prospect that this guy is, near generational on my board at the linebacker position. 6'5", 244, over 32-inch arms, 4.46 speed. Everyone throws the former safety line out there, and it's true. He is a former safety, and I think that imbues him with very good coverage instincts, depth, discipline, and zone. But honestly, I think that kind of shies away from some of the greater strengths in this game, the instincts, the stack and shed ability coming downhill, the physicality, and then also the blitzing upside too. I think he's the real deal. I think he's the full package, all 3 downs, and ultimately a blue chipper that kind of raises your floor day one on the defensive side. So I'm going to go with Sonny Styles. I think, the signings that they made in free agency, they got Darius Slayton coming back. They signed Darnell Mooney as well. You hope that Malik Neighbors can get back to full health, but I think they've at least kind of alleviated the pressure and they've eliminated the funnels where, oh, we have to take this position. I don't think they're precluded to that anymore. I think they can still go BPA, and Styles is that for me here.
Yeah, and I wonder if this plays out where the Titans go Bane, Giants go Styles, and we could play around it once we get to the late first. Like, I wonder if Casey Concepcion is falling, like if the Titans are looking at him like, hey, we didn't get to take a receiver at 4. Like, that's the speed and big playability we need with Cam Ward. Or if, like, Denzel Boston's falling for the Giants. I wonder if they start making calls to try to get back in the first round. So maybe we explore that. But damn it, Ian, you ruined my plan. I was going to hop on board with what was it? It was Dane Brugler, Mel Kiper Jr., and Todd McShay all earlier this week, who dropped a mock with the Cowboys trading up to 6 with the Cleveland Browns. I was going to do that and give the Cowboys Sonny Styles. But now I'm kind of looking at this, and I don't know who else the Cowboys would make that move for, specifically with Bailey, Reese, and Bane all gone. Like, if one of those 3 edge rushers was here, or Styles, I think that would be possible. But I think in this spot, I'm just going to go Carnell Tate here for the Cleveland Browns. Maybe they trade out of this pick, but ultimately, when I think about the decision of receiver at 6, tackle at 24, assuming there's no movement, or the other way around, going tackle at 6 and wide receiver at 24, I feel a little bit better about starting that draft with Carnell Tate. So that's how I'm going to lead it off here with the Cleveland Browns. Have them stick and pick at 6 and give them Carnell Tate, the in-state hero. So then we get to the Washington Commanders, and then we'll get back to Ian. Ironically enough, you mentioned the New Orleans Saints. That'll be your next pick. But Jacob, what do you want to do here for the Commanders? Is this our Jeremiah Love spot?
Yeah, so I know that I mentioned the Titans offense being too far away to take a running back. I look at Washington here. They were extremely active in free agency, addressing a lot of their defensive needs. They're a lot better on that side of the ball now. Offense, you're looking at a team with one of the highest run ratios in the entire NFL last year. Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, he's a solid back, but at the end of the day, I don't think he's a good enough player or a high level enough starter to prevent you from taking a blue chip running back in this opportunity. I don't anticipate Washington's going to be picking this high when the 2027 draft rolls around, especially if their guys can stay healthy, which they weren't able to this past year. So I'm going to take Jeremiah Love here, relieve a lot of the pressure off of Jaden Daniels having that effective run game. You know, they have a solid enough offensive line where I feel like Love would be way better suited off and way more productive in Washington than he would be with Tennessee. So I'm taking Love here for Washington, and I think that'd be a really dangerous backfield to try and stop in the run game.
Yeah, and I wonder if David Blau, granted he's the OC, he's a first-year guy. I'm not saying he's making the pick, but I wonder, just with his time there in Detroit, the Jahmyr Gibbs effect. I wonder if that's anywhere in the back of his mind, Dan Quinn's mind, Wonder if that's somewhere in that room thinking, hey, man, like Jaden plus this type of an impact of running back, that's too good for us to pass on. And plus, you mentioned all their free agent work kind of put Band-Aids on, like, oh, if we don't get Bane, if we don't get Downs, if we don't get, Styles, they kind of have guys that fit those molds there. So I believe this is the first mock I've had where Love goes 7. So I actually kind of love that we made that happen. And then I turn it over to Ian. What do you want to do here for Nicky Loomis and the New Orleans Saints?
First off, I love the pun. Love making that happen. No, that's the low hanging fruit there. But it's tough, man. The Saints, I don't know, man. Carnell Tate is the dream destination here every time, and he's gone. I look at different positions. Offensive line, potentially. I know they signed David Edwards in free agency. They still got a potential hole at the other guard spot. Cesar Ruiz has not been healthy year over year. And Eric McCoy as well, if they wanted to go with Spencer Fano potentially. I think getting a potential long-term center candidate could be the move. But I also look at, receiver Mekhi Lemon is on the board, and I think he's a decent value. He's my 10th overall prospect if you wanted to add him as kind of a power slot, alongside Chris Olave. And I'll be honest, I haven't made a decision yet. So me talking right now is kind of just talking through the options, hoping that I come to an epiphany. We'll see. But Mansour Delane is another potential option. LSU. Yeah, you can play the boundary or the slot. I would say I don't love the schematic fit, but let's be honest. I think Delane is pretty schematically versatile. He can play press man. He can play off man zone. All of those things. He's got the football IQ, the fluidity, the playmaking that you want. But I come back to Tyler Shuck, right? He's entering year 2. That wide receiver room is really bare. And I think having a wide receiver 1 like Chris Olave, who can, be a movement Z, he can operate outside on the boundary, and separate independently and draw defensive weight to his side of the field. I think a player like Mekhi Lemon would really thrive in this type of structure where he's a high-end receiver 2, where he doesn't have the full brunt of the offense on his shoulders. And he can be a target funnel in the short and intermediate ranges. He's got the body control control and the late hands timing to really make those 50-50 balls worth their medal with Shuck. And then at the same time too, the run after catch ability on scheme touches. So, you know, a lot of options for the Saints, a lot of ways they could go, but I lean supporting the young QB who really needs to obviously he showed a lot of promise in year one. You want to make sure that you strike while the iron's hot and really get him going in year two. So Mekhi Lemon, we're loading up the war chest here. We're going with him.
I like it. And a lot of my mocks, I go Delane, then stack it with receiver in round 2. But I can totally see a world where they look at this like, hey, we got something here potentially with Tyler Shuck, 40th overall pick last year. And you look at the combo of like Mekhi Lemon, this guy who is never tackled where he catches the football, great intermediate underneath threat. And then Olave, who is a field stretcher, a guy who makes his money with those deep routes. So I really love that it's like a 1-2 tandem for Tyler Shuck. And also like Shuck still like the response to pressure is like the one area where like, you know, like I'm a little scared. So an easy layup type of target like Mekhi Lemon kind of alleviates some of that concern. So oh man, okay, you guys are giving me a doozy here with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, personally, like Jordan Tyson's really interesting to me, just like a sharp route runner guy placing the outside. I'd be very curious to see if they wanted to do that. CeCe Moinoa, I think, is definitely an option. I might target Maxi Iheanacho if he gets to 40 or maybe even at 29. You start Jalen Moore for a year, so I don't know if you have to go offensive tackle here. I think this team waits on corner. That's like the one position I've kind of ignored here at 9. As much as I know it's
they usually tend to like draft and develop like a day 2. McDuffie was kind of an outlier, I feel like.
100%. And I mean, maybe we get Avion Terrell at 29 too. So like part of me kind of wants to go Caleb Downs here. Just think about like how they used Tyrann Mathieu and like 2 different players ultimately, but that overall alignment versatility, just use this guy all over, let Spags get into his bag. And then I'm thinking about the team picking right after them. And I'm thinking, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs, it's kind of a win on 2 counts. 1, you get a great football player in Caleb Downs. And then 2, if you run into the Bengals in the playoffs, well, congratulations. You're no longer the team that's facing Caleb Downs. So all that said, I think I'm going to go Caleb Downs here. Right tackle would be the only other thing I could consider here. But I wonder if there's like a developmental option we can get a little bit later on. / I wonder if they're just okay rolling with Jalen Moore. But I'm going to go Caleb Downs. He's the highest graded prospect on my board at this point. So, and also you get to play a little defense and ensure he doesn't go to Cincinnati, which is kind of fun if you're a Chiefs fan. But all right, Jacob, this is kind of a disastrous board in a lot of ways for the Cincinnati Bengals. What do you want to do here?
Yeah, you're right in assuming I was going to take Caleb Downs here for Cincinnati.
Yep.
That definitely was going to be my pick. So, you know, kudos to you for getting out in front of that. I'm looking at this board. Yeah, this is really just not a good board. I mean, part of me wishes like I would have gone tackle here had they not extended Orlando Brown Jr. I mean, I don't think that at this stage he's an okay starter. I don't think they're going to give up on Amarius Mims this early in his NFL career.
Do we think somebody would trade up to the spot? Is there
I think
that's looking to jump Miami maybe?
I think the Bengals would certainly be open to listening to trade back offers. So I need to go through my Rolodex here.
Who we gonna hit up? Here we go.
Hey, Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
Are you guys interested in moving up from 12?
I think that's absolutely 10. Possible. And dude, honestly, like you see all these Dallas Cowboy trades, and now serving as like I guess Stephen McKay in this opportunity here as the guy running this draft for Dallas. You see where there's a lot of these trades lately, like we talked about with those 3 guys who dropped mocks this week, moving up to 6. It's a lot of ammo to give up there, but like this marginal move up, it's 100-point difference. So like, frankly, you can get away with just offering maybe 112. And honestly, given the board here, I think the Bengals would even at that point be like, yeah, sure, just the 4th. We're willing to take a little bit of a loss here. So I like that idea. Let's see. I like that. And as the GM here for Dallas, I accept this. So 10, 12, and then Dallas is going to give you pick 112. And then boom, we'll propose it. A little bit of an extra value. You could say Cincinnati needs to give something back, but all in all, I'll trade rejected. But we'll get it there. We'll get it there. But I like that honestly a good bit. And it's like Dallas doesn't normally trade a whole lot of times in the NFL draft, at least not that come to mind. So all right, let's beef this up a little bit. 10, 112. I guess Cincinnati's got to throw something back. What about 199? Likely accept. We feel better
if they didn't have more capital, I would have said like the Lions for Monroe Freeling too, but they don't have a 3rd round pick, so I'm not.
That's true.
Detroit came to my mind as well. But yeah. Or honestly, like CeCe Moinoa. Just like I could see them making that work. And then, you make the Penei Sewell switch. But okay, cool. Well, Dallas has now moved up to 10. So I guess in this spot, I will make this pick since I was technically the GM of 12.
Yeah.
And I'll go Mansour Delane. In some ways, I mean, Jamon McCoy is my CB1 still. But I could see a world where like Dallas is looking at this and they're like, hey, we drafted a guy coming off the ACL injury last year. So let's go the safer route. And this time around, let's go Mansour Delane. And it kind of makes sense, too, to just jump the Dolphins. Like, if you love Mansour and you think, hey, Miami might be the team that takes him at 11, I don't mind that marginal kind of move up, pick swap later on. I kind of like that a lot. So that then leaves Ian with the Miami Dolphins. What do you want to do here?
Yeah, Delane was on my short list for the Dolphins. Luckily, not the only guy on that short list, but and hey, I think Delane in Dallas is a really good fit. You look at the way that the corner room, obviously losing Trayvon Diggs, and not having a ton of established talent in that room aside from Deron Bland. I think Delane, with his ability to play the boundary in the slot at a high level, I think that's a really good fit for a team that needs that kind of play in the back end. So the Dolphins here, you could really do anything if you wanted to. They have so many needs. It's insane. Caleb Downs, Dylan Thieneman would be an option for me personally. He's a top 10 guy on my board, but I'm also looking at the offensive line as well. We know the Dolphins still have a need on the interior at guard. And then Austin Jackson has not really won the hearts of onlookers. His availability has been a concern year over year, right? When he's available and fully healthy, he's a solid starter, right? But as he gets older, that's becoming less and less of a certainty. And you have to look at a guy like Francis Mauigoa, a local product, a local talent who's a natural right tackle who could shift inside to guard early in his career and really provide strong play for a front office. John Eric Sullivan coming from the Packers, who recently had a shift toward heavier, more powerful guards on the interior, right? We know they drafted Jordan Morgan a few years ago. He was a lighter, more athletic guy, but then they drafted Anthony Belton round 2 last year. They signed Aaron Banks. So the philosophical indicators are pointing toward the physicality, the play strength, the parameters that Francis Mauigoa would fit under. So I think I'm going to go with Mauigoa here. I think you can never go wrong with investing in the offensive line. I think his positional versatility right away helps them out. And then eventually when they move on from Austin Jackson, he can be a rock solid starter on the right side. And especially investing all that money in Malik Willis, you want to make sure that you give him the tools to succeed.
Yeah, and I mean, all your points about like position alignment and versatility, I kind of think like Spencer Fano might be the guy they like fall in love with. These guys who could play tackle, guard, center, and just make it work. Yeah. But nonetheless, like CeCe Moinoa, like if you're looking to have offensive linemen sell jerseys, like this is the spot to do it. Miami to Miami, like this is the pipeline. So all that said, Jacob, we moved back a couple spots. Hopefully this makes it a little bit of an easier, pill to swallow. I know it's still not a super ideal board for a team that needs a lot of defense, but the corners are solid. And I'll pitch you. This is your pick, so do what you want with it. But does Spencer Fano make a little bit of sense for this team? I mean, kind of look at him as like if you played him at center, could take that offensive line to another stratosphere. So I will leave you that as a tease and then turn it over to you for what you want to do here with the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by that. I think, you have the opportunity to boost the offensive line. I mean, like I mentioned, I don't think they're going to go tackle after, I don't think they're going to move off of the Marius Mims this early. And I also think that, you extend Orlando Brown, you're not going to take a left tackle here. But if you're really a believer in Spencer Fano here, Venga Ioane maybe too.
Venga's also fun too. Yeah.
That could be the way to go. But there's one, and I'll admit, I still don't love the board here at 12 for Cincinnati. But I think that it's good to move back 2 spots, pick up a 4th rounder, have a chance to get some depth going. But I'm going to do here, I know Ian mentioned him as a possibility for the Dolphins here at 11. I'm going to take Dylan Thieneman.
Okay.
I think, obviously, it's a glaring need for Cincinnati at safety. They brought in Brian Cook, but I still think they need one more guy. And that defense obviously it was a massive problem last year. And granted, I think a part of the big reason that they had a disappointing record, obviously, was because Joe Burrow was hurt for so long. But I think that even when Burrow comes back, you're gearing for a playoff run.
Right.
That's the expectation here. And I think if you can move back 2 spots, get a guy who I mean, I'll admit 10 was probably a little bit rich for me. Maybe 12 is a tiny bit rich as well, but I don't hate the value here. I think you have a guy like Thieneman who can move anywhere in the defensive secondary. You can play him in the slot. You can play him up high, in single high, covering underneath, covering two high shells. You can have him in the box. Uh, you have that elite football IQ that's really something special, and the raw speed he brings to the table, the ball skills. I think he'd be a tremendous addition to Cincinnati's defense. And I think if you get Thieneman in round one, I don't think that's a finished finished project by any means on that defense. But you bring in, Brian Cook, Boye Mafe, Jonathan Allen, and then now Dylan Thieneman. Like, suddenly, I mean, you're in a much better place than you were last year. And I think that even if that defense is league average, I think the Bengals are going to be really dangerous in the AFC. So that's the goal here. It's not to fix everything in one off season, but to put yourself in a position where the defense isn't a liability like it has been the last few years. I think Thieneman would put them on the right track for that.
Yeah, to steal
Thieneman, real quick, Thieneman is a perfect fit with Brian Cook as well, being the guy who can go up top, Brian Cook, the support safety. And we know Al Golden really liked having Xavier Watts when he was at Notre Dame, that ball hawk in the middle. Thieneman fits that. So I'm more I just love the pick. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
I got Thieneman at 19, so like technically a smidge of a reach, but like I think everything you said there, Ian, makes total sense. And Cook, the ability to move him both down into a strong safety might be better for him in and of itself. But I think Thieneman's tape this last year showed more than just a single high center fielder that he was at Purdue. And I almost do wonder, like, dude, could we put Dylan Thieneman in the slot for this team and just keep him as close to the center of gravity as many plays as possible? Could be kind of fun. So really a lot of versatility there for Al Golden, that new or in his second year as the DC. But all that said, Jacob, you're staying on the clock here. You've now got the Rams. What do you want to do here at 13?
Yeah, so my eyes are instantly looking at offensive tackle here. I think there's a lot of really good value at tackle still available. And going into the draft, I mean, your two starting tackles are Alaric Jackson and Warren McClendon Jr. I mean, I think you could definitely improve off of that. I'm torn more so whether to go left tackle or right tackle here, because I mean, in theory, you could take one and move them over to the other, but I want, ultimately when you have so many multiple guys with pretty similar grades, I want to make sure that I'm preferably taking someone who's comfortable at one position. So as I'm going through it, I'm more comfortable with Alaric Jackson than I am with Warren McClendon as a starter. I mean, Alaric has been pretty solid for a while. He's nothing, he's not an elite level tackle by any means, but he's still serviceable. So looking at right tackle, I'm taking Spencer Fano here. I think that he's somebody who in a McVay system, he brings a lot to like as far as his mobility. I mean, his arms are a little bit shorter, and I think, that can show at tape, on tape sometimes, but at the same time, he showcases enough with his hands in, the timing of his strikes, the placement, the accuracy, his ability to win with that leverage, get inside an opponent's chest, as well as the mobility going into his kick slide, the acceleration as a down blocker or a reach blocker, or somebody just climbing to the second level as a run blocker. The athleticism is 100% there. The intelligence, the technique is there. The play strength isn't bad. The length is it's below average, but at the same time, I think that he's someone who can be a good starting tackle for a long time. That's worth taking at 13, in my opinion. So I'm on board with that for the Rams here.
And frankly, I think he's a guy that can play all five spots. So no matter what the future looks like for the Rams, I think if this were to play out, Sean McVay would have a starter somewhere on that line with Spencer Fano. All right, Ian, man, this is a really interesting board here for the Baltimore Ravens, because immediately Jordan Tyson stands out. Kenyon Sadiq's a lot of fun. Vega Ioane is one you see a ton. And then Akeem Mesidor, I think, would be a really fun ad opposite of Trey Hendrickson. So options aplenty for you, Mr. Cunningham. What do you want to do here for my my nightmare-inducing Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I look at Jordan Tyson. I think he's compelling. At the same time, I think the Ravens, what they really need at the receiver position, obviously you want a guy. If you're going to invest in a starter, he has to be able to separate it, right? But I also think a ball winner is important. And Jordan Tyson is good at the catch point. I don't know if he's elite at the catch point, right?
Sure.
You combine that with the medicals. That steers me away from that. I'm looking at offensive line as well. We talked about Venga Ioane earlier, and he's again, this is a little early for him, for me on my board, but at the same time, having a glaring need on the interior, the lack of push that they got inside, the poor leverage play, those things hurt them drastically last year, and you could see the drop off in efficiency for the run game. So Venga Ioane is the name that really speaks to me here, and I think I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to go with the interior offensive line. Get the most out of Derrick Henry in the remaining window that he has. With Ioane, you're getting, again, I think he's my 20th overall player, 20th or 21st. So a slight reach on my board, but you're getting a guy that sizes up to NFL competition at 6'4", 330, right? You're getting an A++ character guy, a locker room guy, right? He's got football IQ, again, the schematic intelligence. He can run duo, power, gap. And then in pass protection too, he's very good at aligning and staying square to his opponents and still being able to uncork power from his hands while staying square, right? A lot of guys, need to rotate their hips into it, but that square power, that compact power where he can maximize his strikes by fully loading his elbows and shocking out, he's got that level of synergy too. So I like Venga Ioane. I think he's going to be a rock solid starter from the jump for Baltimore, and at a position that doesn't get as much love as it should, in my opinion. I think interior offensive line, you neglect that, and defensive tackles have a very short path to the QB. So Ioane, he hedges for that and helps the offense improve.
Yeah, and I mean, an offseason where they bring in John Simpson, I've pretty much accepted because I want the Steelers to get Venga. I think he's like the top guy for like my wish list. So I've accepted he's going to be a Baltimore Raven at 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm mocking for the Ravens, and I took him from your Steelers. So I feel bad now. I'm sorry.
It's until I've already swallowed it. You don't have to apologize. Tampa Bay. Part of me is kind of like, Jermon McCoy could be kind of fun. I could see where like Todd Bowles gets head over heels with how he plays, specifically the man coverage tape back in 24-25. But I'm going to go with Keem Mesidor. It'd be him or Cassius Howell, but I think they'll go Mesidor. Just like his handwork, the pass rush bag in and of itself is very NFL ready. I wonder how much of his game translates to the next level, just in the sense of like he wins so often with inside counters. But that being said, like he's older prospect. He kind of comes with the expectation of being more win now piece. And like the way last year went, Todd Bowles got Mike Evans and other guys out and leaving just because they don't like how he's running that team. So I feel like he needs kind of like what we talked about with David Bailey versus Reese at 2, where I feel like this is a head coach that needs someone to kind of reinvigorate that room and that team. And I think Akeem Mesidor is the kind of win now piece that the Bucs are looking for right now and out of position of need. So I'll go Mesidor there at 15.
I like it.
All right, Jacob. The Jets at 16.
All right, so there's one move I'm looking at here that is really intriguing to me. And I know that Adonai Mitchell showed some promise down the stretch, but at the same time, I think if you have Jordan Tyson here available at 16, that's a value that's really difficult to pass up. I think that, look, realistically, you're probably not going to get your quarterback of the future this year. That's probably a 2027 sort of move. So I think to slowly but surely put the pieces in place for whoever that is to succeed going forward, I think that'd be a win out of this 2026 draft class for the Jets. So Jordan Tyson, I think that if it wasn't for his injury history, I think he'd be the consensus top receiver in this class. So to get him at 16, I think is really good value. Will he go higher than this in real life? I don't know, especially because, you factor in the injury piece, but I think his tape is as good as any receiver in this class, if not better. And a big part of most of Garrett Wilson's time with the Jets is he's been the only guy, really, outside of a short stint where Devontae Adams was there. But that team was such a mess that it didn't really matter necessarily. So if you can get Wilson and Tyson as the future of the wide receiver position for the Jets, I think that's a really good step in the right direction. With the young offensive line that they have that seems to be getting better and better each year, I think you're working with something there.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, Matt Harmon's comp for Tyson being Amari Cooper, like we mentioned, not the most physical guy at the catch point, but really smooth route runner. Like to me, that one sticks all the way through. So kind of love a wide receiver room of Garrett Wilson, who's a sharp route runner, and Amari Cooper comp type of Tyson. And then Adonai Mitchell, who's a little bit of a freelance route runner. But man, when he gets open, dude, it looks crazy crisp. So I kind of love that for Geno coming off the year he just had. Ian, not to rush you here, but I'm assuming Monroe Freeland here for 17 because we were talking about the trade up here for Detroit.
Yeah, we can just keep it short and simple. Yep, Monroe Freeling, and yeah, I mean he's a guy who I think could end up being a top 10 pick. Obviously, you look at what NFL teams fawn over. It's the height, the length, the athleticism, and he's got all of that in spades. And the film, there is room for refinement. I think he's a little raw with his hand usage, but I do think he has the requisite developmental fail safes that you want, flexibility being one of them. Obviously, the length and the athleticism help him there too with recovery. But then also in the run game, I think he's pretty ankle sound and at the very least mentally acute with reaching his landmarks and knowing how to seal defenders off and fulfill his assignments. So I like the pick. I think the Lions have said they're willing to move Penei Sewell to left tackle if necessary. This allows them to keep Sewell where he is and develop a top flight S tier talent on the blind side.
I like it. In a lot of ways, I'm not saying the comp is 1-to-1, and I like Paris Johnson Jr. more coming out of Ohio State, but they're both guys that it's just like, dude, if they got 8 to 12 pounds of muscle on that frame, they're going to be awesome. So like, that's kind of where I'm at with Freeling. And dude, like if there's a place to do it, like Dan Campbell's the maniac to get him in the weight room and get him there. Oh yeah. Minnesota Vikings. This is a tough team. And ultimately I'm sniping myself because if it can't be Vanga for the Steelers at 21, I think my next favorite choice is Omar Cooper Jr., but I think that's where I'm leaning right now for the Minnesota Vikings. I just don't see them extending Jordan Addison. I just cannot see that happening. So really my brain is kind of like Omar Cooper Jr., or do I give, football analysis? He's been comping Casey Concepcion to Percy Harvin. So like part of me in my brain is kind of like, that could be fun, but is he a little too Jordan Addison like, the schemed up yards after the catch, the long speed, I wonder if Omar Cooper Jr. brings a little bit something different there. I do think Jamal McCoy would make a lot of sense. It's just, I just don't, Flores typically doesn't play young, defensive players all that often. The Dallas Turner, the Lewis Scenes of the world, so I hate to do this to my Steelers, but I think I'm going to go Omar Cooper Jr. Anybody else that's jumping in y'all's eye right now? I mean, it could be Peter Woods. Like in a lot of ways, like Peter Woods is such a tough guy to mock. It's like he could be unlocked anywhere, but he also could disappoint anywhere you lock him. So
I would say the board didn't fall great for the Vikings here. Ideally, maybe Thieneman is here. Jamal McCoy is a potential option, but I'll be honest, I have not seen the Omar Cooper to Minnesota fit at all this cycle, and I'm very intrigued by it because I think you mentioned it, Jordan Addison, the long-term outlook doesn't look too promising, and I think Justin Jefferson seeing a lot more man coverage, right, and dictating 2-on-1s. I think that opens up a lot of opportunities for Omar Cooper to be kind of that zone splicer, that rack threat as well. So I like the fit a lot. I think Kevin O'Connell can do some really fun things with it.
And that's where I'm kind of thinking, like, I just look at how that organization is run, especially with them firing a GM midway through the cycle. Like Flores has been a guy who wants like a certain type of veteran during free agency. And then it feels like KOC is kind of like looking at the draft, like, ooh, look at these new toys I get to keep and play with. And you also have Jalen Naylor gone and TJ Hawkinson getting up there in age. So like those two factors, there's already a decent like number of targets up for grabs in that offense. So with or without Addison, I've done this now twice, but and again, I'm sniping myself because I want Omar Cooper Jr. to be my CeeDee Lamb for Mike McCarthy offense in Pittsburgh. But I think KOC would be salivating a lot at the idea of Omar Cooper Jr. there. So all that said, Jacob, I give it to you for one of the weirdest teams in this year's class, the Carolina Panthers at 19.
Yeah, that's weirdest is putting it lightly. I think this is going to be, I don't know, such a weird season for Carolina. And I'm looking at it. I mean, it's like good for them. They made it to the playoffs somehow. I think that if they're going to want to repeat as NFC South champions, I think they're going to need to boost that offense a bit. I like what they did on defense this free agency. I mean, they spent a lot of money. So say whatever you want about the prices they paid, but Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd should be two instant additions and improvements for that front seven for sure. And the defensive line, I think, is in better shape, or at least projects better than a lot of people, I think, give it credit for, having drafted Nick Scorton. And then you have Princely Umanmielen, coming into the rotation as well. And other, free agent additions they've made in years past, like Bobby Brown, Tershawn Wharton. Like, there's talent there in that defensive front. I know that they've drafted wide receivers each of the last 2 years. Xavier Legette hasn't necessarily worked out. I'm not going that direction, but I am going to take a passing weapon at 19. So that's 3 years in a row of a skill position player on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to take Kenyon Sadiq here. I think with him, obviously an elite level athlete at tight end, a rare level of explosiveness for the tight end position. He's somebody who can, win versus man coverage with not just how he works the stem, but also just the raw lateral quickness that he has coming out of his breaks. He has the deep speed to stretch the field vertically, great ball skills. He's not going to be elite as a blocker, but I think, he provides more than enough in that regard to project as, a solid blocker, but it's the receiving value that's really going to be hammered home here. I think Sadiq has Pro Bowl potential, and give Bryce Young another weapon. I think would be, great to continue and try and elevate him at the end of the day. You're still in that I'm not sure range where you've seen some really good flashes from him, but also some really low lows. So I think to give him the best chance to prove that he is the franchise quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, I think that Sadiq would make a lot of sense here.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And it almost feels like you take JT Sanders and Tommy Tremble and just put those two toys together and you kind of come out with something that looks vaguely like Kenyon Sadiq. So I like that a ton. Ian, all right, so Dallas has already taken Mansour Lane in a small little trade up from 12 to 10. Not nearly as flashy as all these other mocks have had the Cowboys being this week. But what do you want to do here to follow it up here at 20, considering, hey, this is one of those mocks that they actually held on to the 20th overall pick?
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. It's first for everything. And there is a very small part of me, a very small intrusive thought that's saying, get Jermon McCoy, put Mansour Lane in the nickel, and just have the best secondary in the league. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to stick with another position. I look at edge and linebacker. Linebacker, the value is rough, right? CJ Allen and Jacob Rodriguez are the next two guys. And I know some people are willing to take them first round. I can see the argument for it. They're both just outside of round one graded for me. So this would be a little rich on my board. You could go with Keldrick Falk, and I think he'd be a really intriguing fit for Christian Parker. I think he's a guy who could play the strong side 5-tech, face up over the tackle, but then also has the upside to rush from 7-tech or rotate inside to 3-tech and 4-eye on a situational basis, at least. And then the reviews of his football character are very good too. So, it's tricky. Also losing that early 4th round pick. I don't think the Cowboys have a 2nd round pick either, right? So it's kind of hurting for capital here. And if you don't get a linebacker now, you won't get to take your swing until 92. So that's the decision I'm grappling with here. I could try and engineer a trade down, but I might just stick and pick. On my board, CJ Allen is slightly higher, and he ran a sub 4.5 40 at his pro day. I think you look at the impact that he had on that Georgia defense, right? He was the green dot. He was literally calling plays for them under Kirby Smart. I mean, the football intelligence, the IQ is through the roof. And then he's one of those guys who I think for what Dallas needs, especially physical gap sound play in the run game, but then also having a guy who can play as the mic, has the cohesive piece, who keeps the pieces together, keeps guys in position, and helps things stay on schedule and in sync. And I think CJ Allen fits a lot of what they need. So I think it's a little bit of a reach on my board, but because of the dearth of capital that the Cowboys have and the need to really they need another edge in the rotation too, but I think linebacker is a much more prevalent need for them right now, alongside DeMarvion Overshown. So we're going CJ Allen. He's the commander of the defense, and he takes him a step up.
Yeah, honestly, even just looking, you mentioned Overshown, on paper, Allen plus Overshown, that to me is as ideal, a 1-2, strength to weakness overlap as you get. Overshown, this athlete, sideline to sideline, coverage, another safety turn, linebacker type. I was a big fan of his coming out of Texas. And then CJ Allen, I use this all the time, but when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I just think those two guys side by side go perfectly together.
For sure.
I'll be quick here for my Pittsburgh Steelers. I still, I've softened a little bit on how much I think Ty Simpson's going to end up being the pick. Because honestly, I feel like they might also sell themselves on Drew Aller being the team that does that. So I could totally see a world where they say, we'll draft and stash Aller and build around Rodgers. So with that now kind of being where I think this team's going, I'm going to go Casey Concepcion. And that's going to be our slot receiver, even though I know last year he played 65% of his snaps out wide. I think that's an important factor for the long term, because I do wonder if DK becomes someone that this team moves off of next offseason. And it kind of sets up to be Pittman plus Concepcion. But that's a whole other offseason away. But KC is your third. All of a sudden you go from this team that's had like one receiver and that's like all you've let yourself, you allowed yourself and budgeted for over the last 5 to 6 years to all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, they got 3 legit guys to get excited about, even though it's probably old man Rodgers. I think KC brings a lot to this team, and his explosiveness out of the slot. I think Mike McCarthy would be salivating over the ideas of like, oh, I did this with CD, now I got KC, so I think that one makes a lot of sense for me. But with that said, I turn it over to Jacob Infante. What do you want to do here for the Los Angeles Chargers at 22?
So this is definitely an interesting board, I think, for the Chargers. You can go in a lot of different directions here. So I'm going to point to the new Chargers defensive coordinator, Chris O'Leary, who was the defensive coordinator at Western Michigan last year. I know he's a safeties coach by trade. But I think, being the DC there, he got to work with an intriguing talent, Nadame Tucker, out of Western Michigan. So he's someone who's, a day 3 pick. But the reason I bring him up is because Tucker came in at the combine with 3rd percentile arm length and 6th percentile hand size and was still incredibly efficient in that defense out of explosiveness and the craftiness as a pass rusher. So if you get where I'm going with this as far as the arm length debate goes, I'm looking at Cassius Howell here. He's a little further down, but I do think that there's a chance Howell sneaks his way into the first round. I'm looking at a really good athlete at the edge position. I mean, obviously the short arms are a concern, but also somebody who's been very efficient at the SEC level. I mean, you're looking at a guy who, he performed well at Bowling Green. This year he had the opportunity to, dominate at Texas A&M. He was an All-American with 11.5 sacks, 14 tackles for a loss. He's got a deep arsenal as a pass rusher, has that quick first step. And I think, you have a really good edge rushing duo and, Tui Pelotu and Mack going into 2026. But with Mack at the stage that he's at in his career, that's, he's not the long-term guy, obviously. So you want to find that option alongside Tui Pelotu. I think Howell could be that guy to where it makes things easy for him as a rookie where it's, he's just going to be a situational pass rusher. I mean, he's a little undersized. He has his issues against the run. I think putting him in a situation like this is the best you could possibly get for his development, where, you ease the expectations as a run defender right out of the gate and be like, all right, you are going to be you're going to be our DPR here, and just get after the quarterback, use that speed, that flexibility, that finesse, and make some plays off the edge. So I'm going with Howell here. I know, at least according to our board, that's a little bit of a reach. I'm personally a little bit higher on Howell than that. So I look at that as a good opportunity to get the most out of Howell, to find a good successor to Khalil Mack off the edge, and to ensure that pass rush is going to stay strong for, years to come after Khalil Mack retires or ends up going somewhere else after his 1-year deal's done.
Yeah, no, I like that a ton. Him or Malachi Lawrence, to me, either one of those guys makes sense as like your David Ojabo, or sorry, not David Ojabo replacement, but your Adafe Owe replacement. Getting the wrong former Baltimore Raven in my head. All right, Ian, this is an interesting team too. Like Philadelphia Eagles, what do you want to do here for at 23? It's weird. We don't know what's going on with AJ Brown. Will they? Won't they trade him? The offensive line needs help. Edge group needs help. It's kind of a weird spot. We're not used to seeing the Eagles in. So what do you want to do here at 23?
Yeah, and you know what? There's that. Jermod McCoy is still on the board. And I know they signed Reek Woolen but he's only on a 1-year deal. Again, there's the intrusive thought saying Jermod McCoy and Quinyon Mitchell. That's a pretty good duo right there. But there's also part of me that I don't want to overinvest in one position group when other position groups need help. And I know offensive tackle has been a big long-term vision for the Eagles, right? Lane Johnson is not long for this league, right? He's still a starter, right? But he's nearing the cliff, I think, and you got to plan for life after him, especially losing Jeff Stoutland. That's a big developmental pipeline where I think now you have to be a little more careful investing in high-end talent and make sure that you don't skimp, because you might not be able to turn the next 7th rounder PFA into Jordan Mailata, right? Like it might not be that simple anymore for the Eagles. So I think offensive tackle calls to me a lot here. Wide receiver, would have been on my list, but I look at the guys that are still on the board again. Denzel Boston. I do like Chris Bell a lot. I think if the ACL, if we're not talking about that, he's a first round pick. But the medicals do complicate that a little bit. And also, if there's a chance that you can get him later on, maybe you wait and try and play the board, right? So I'm leaning offensive tackle here. For the Eagles, I'm leaning toward preparing for life after Lane Johnson and making sure you have the guy in house. And Caleb Lomu is the highest graded tackle for me on the board right here. But also, I look at Blake Miller. He's another guy who's right up there. I think schematically, he's a really good fit with his athleticism and range. And they're two guys that I expect to have really long careers. Ironically, I comp them both to Falcons or former Falcons blockers. I think Caleb Lomu bears a lot of similarity to Jake Matthews, their current starter at left tackle. And then I think Ryan Schrader, who was their right tackle during the Super Bowl run, the Super Bowl runner-up season, had some really good years in there in a shorter career. But I think Ryan Schrader is a really good comp for Blake Miller. But I'm going to go with Caleb Lomu here. I think that Jake Matthews comp, I think you actually, wait a minute. Did you already click him? Okay, you did. We'll go with Lomu. I was thinking, I had a second thought as I clicked it. Oh, we can undo the pick. That's right. That's a new feature. That's a new feature. All right, let's undo the pick. Yeah, by the way, new feature, undo pick. Yeah, that hasn't been there for most of the cycle. I had to calibrate to that. I changed my mind, had a last second change of heart. We're going Blake Miller because he's a natural right tackle. I think that acclimation period is going to be a lot quicker with him. And again, athletically, 6'7", over 310, over 34-inch arms, 4-year starter, 53 career start, or I think 54 career starts at Clemson. So all of the boxes he checks, and I think he can be a really good player.
Yeah, no, I got 54 college starts for him, and because of that, dude, like Lane Johnson, like you just can't expect 17 games from him next year. So in some ways, yeah, get the developmental guy, and he's eventually Lane Johnson's replacement. But you might need Blake Miller to play some important football in the here and now. So I don't hate that whatsoever. That leaves us with the Browns. I have Lomu ranked higher than Proctor. I know that at least that's the case here on the board. Let me double check my rankings. I'm not talking out of my ass. No, actually, I do have Proctor just a little bit ahead, but him, Freeling, and Lomu are all kind of in the same bucket where it's like there's a lot of work to be done there. But really, it feels like the buzz around Cleveland is they really like Caden Proctor. So for me, I think that's like firmly the direction I'll go here. And you kind of look at Todd Monken. He's both wanted to run the zone stuff, but he's also wanted to be able to go downhill and run duo. So I think Caden Proctor could be the meshing of those kind of ideologies. And this is why, as much as you could have gotten under Freeling, Spencer Fano, you're telling me, even if you're not a world's biggest Caden Proctor fan like myself, Tate plus Proctor, I take that over just about any combination of whatever OT 6 at 6 is versus receiver at 24. So I like how this played out a good bit there for the Browns. And then here we go, the moment I've been waiting for. Jacob, take it away for your hometown Bears.
So I'm very intrigued by this board. I'm not going to lie. There are a lot of different directions I could be going here. That defensive line is a really big need, and you have Peter Woods, Caden McDonald. I mean, you could argue about a scheme fit there, but Peter Woods, I think, would be a good scheme fit. Keldrick Falk, I think, really fits what you look for as an edge rusher. Kristen Miller, I think, is an underrated fit. Zion Young, TJ Parker. That's just along the defensive line. Emmanuel Neal McWarren's still available at safety. I'm going to go in a different direction here. And this is one pick that I don't think I've seen made in a single mock draft that I've read in this process. And I look at that secondary. Tyreek Stevenson is entering the last year of his rookie deal, and it's been very inconsistent with him at the NFL level. And I go back to in the playoffs this past year and, late in the regular season, once all the outside corners were healthy, it was Jalen Johnson and Nashawn Wright, and Tyreek Stevenson was on the bench. And we saw the contract that Nashawn Wright signed, 1 year, $5 million. That's good money. That's not long-term, high-level starting cornerback money.
Right.
And that's who started ahead of Tyreek Stevenson. So I'm going to take Jermod McCoy.
I like it.
Obviously there's the concern with the injury, but going back to 2024, 4 interceptions as a sophomore 2 years ago, 53.6 passer rating allowed. You look at the athletic testing too, this, at his pro day, coming off the injury. He had a 9.67 relative athletic score, 38-inch vertical, 4.4 flat in the 40-yard dash. He's got solid size, very good athleticism, good instincts and coverage. I think you get that alongside Jalen Johnson in Chicago's secondary. That's a secondary that struggled significantly, allowing big plays down the stretch last year, and they got turnovers, which is a big reason why they won a lot of those close games. But at the same time, those wouldn't have been close games if their secondary didn't shut guys down consistently in coverage. So I think McCoy gives you a great opportunity to do that. Jalen Johnson, Jermod McCoy, and Kyler Gordon is the secondary in Chicago. I think will be really, really tough to stop.
Yeah, I love it. And hey, I mean, he's the number 11 player on my board. So like we stopped the slide for, to me, one of the best players in this class. And Dennis Allen still likes to play a lot of single high coverage, man. So there's going to be opportunities where corners are on an island. And yeah, if you're telling me it's Jalen Johnson, Jermod McCoy, I think I could live with those guys on an island. All right, Ian, this is your pick here at 26 with Buffalo. But I want to get you two potentially on the phone here. With Denzel Boston still available, do we think the Giants could entertain a trade up here with Buffalo, a little in-state New York action? And then the Bills don't have a second-round pick, so it's probably nothing lucrative, like life-changing from the Giants, but it would give them one more swing of the bat. So I will leave it to you two. Do you want to do that, or do you want to stick and pick here for the Bills at 26, Ian?
It's tempting. It is very tempting. I think I'm going to stick and pick for the Bills, and for one reason. The top nose tackle remains on the board, and I think this is an underrated need for the Bills because, look, you got Ed Oliver, you got Deion Walker, who is big enough measurable-wise where you could envision him like that, but also he's way too tall to be a nose tackle, first off. Like that center of gravity is very poor. But also Deion Walker, his best film from college was literally him being used as an alignment versatile game wrecker all the way outside to wide 9 and 7 tech, right? So this is a guy who's a freak athlete who I think, especially with Jim Leonard coming as the new defensive coordinator, he runs a lot of odd front, right? Fronts with 0 tech, 1 tech. You want to have a really strong player at the fulcrum. And I think Caden McDonald is a first-round nose tackle. Those don't come around too often. He's got the linear explosion and the power, but also the stacking strength and the ability to two-gap a little bit. I think it can be a little more consistent taking on double teams, but again, the center of gravity, the leverage play, the strength, the hand power, and the motor as a playmaker as well. So I think Caden McDonald allows you to allows Ed Oliver to play a little freer and get some one-on-ones. And then you can be a lot more creative with how you weaponize Deion Walker. They still need edge help, but I think they can get that on day 2 potentially.
I like it. Nope. I think he is the perfect nose tackle fit, the DJ Jones type for this team. And even when you get into nickel, I think there's a world for him to be out there next to Ed Oliver. So I like that a ton. All right, so 49ers here at 27. This, I'll be completely honest, is not like my favorite board for the 49ers. Neither one of those receivers are there. Proctor is like an interesting guy just because you can play him at guard for the time being and then eventually make a move to tackle. I don't really feel the same way about Lomu. And I just looked it up. The Giants don't have a 3rd-round pick as of right now. So as much as I would love to have the Giants come up here and take Boston off our hands, I just don't know. Maybe Kansas City would be the team that could do that. Let me see.
Yeah.
What Kansas City? So 500 points per pick 40. They also pick a 29 though, so do they need to do that? That's the tough part. Would they feel like they need to do that from 29 up to 27 or from 40 to 27?
If they want to try and get double dip with Keldrick Falk and Denzel Boston potentially, that could be an option. I know they need more pass rush help at edge though.
But like Falk's really typically been their type of guy. Maybe you could tell me Malachi Lawrence is like a Felix Anudike kind of fit. Like he's not quite George Karlaftis spag type, but like yeah. Who else could use a receiver like a big body X type? We already gave the Jets a receiver. I mean, Baltimore could make a splash. That's another team.
The Dolphins have the ammunition to trade up if they wanted to.
Ooh, Miami could
small
be,
trade up.
And frankly, that
Miami needs just about everything.
Yeah.
And because of that, the amount of swing of the bats you can get is key. But dude, they have 4 3rd-round picks.
Yeah,
they have 4 3rd-round picks. So yeah, I think you're spot on there. It's 470 points from pick 43.
Let's see if I can, because I think I'm Miami, right?
I think so. I think 43 would put it.
Let's see if I can give one of those late 3rd-rounders to move up to 27 and lock down Denzel Boston.
Yeah, 194 plus 470. That's what, basically 600 points. So it's a little short. Maybe it's 215 for pick 75, 215 plus 4. You guys are getting to see my math brain work here live on the fly. That'd be 685.
It's impressive.
Okay. So that'd be about right. Okay. It helps when draft deck does a lot of this. So 43 and 75 seems to be like the price point it would take. I hate that it's the earliest of those, but then you still have pick 30. So all of a sudden you're this Miami team that's getting the draft 3 times in the top 30, shades of that Raiders draft where they came away with Clelin Ferrell, Josh Jacobs, and then who was that safety that was so bad? Abrams.
Jonathan Abrams. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
I apologize to Abrams for catching a stray here.
Yeah. Hey, Clelin Ferrell too. Like he's still in the league because he's got like 4th round expectations and he's like good enough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
4th overall.
Sure.
Yeah, I like that a ton. And frankly, I think about Bobby Slowick and him working with Nico Collins. As much as I think like, Mekhi Lemon could make sense at 11, I think he'd prefer a guy who wins on the boundary. So yeah, I think 43.75 for 27, that makes sense. And boom, the trade's done just like that. And then I will take Denzel Boston here at 27. Yeah, that to me is a home run. And then you're back on the clock in a couple of picks for the Dolphins. I love it. I like that a ton. All right, so then that takes us to, I think this is Jacob. Yeah, Jacob.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do here for Houston.
All right, so this pick, I'm intrigued with what I see on the board right now. I mean, I could go offensive tackle. I think there's really good value here between Lomu and if you want to go more for a project, Ihanachor. They did sign Braden Smith in free agency, but again, he's a little bit older. So you could look at him as a successor, but I see a really good opportunity here that I don't want to pass up, and that's to look at that edge rusher duo of Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and to add a presence along the interior that can consistently create force up the middle, and that's Peter Woods out of Clemson. So I'm looking at that, and I know we talked a little bit about some of the inconsistency that he had at Clemson last year. I think that putting him with 2 top-flight edge rushers alongside him should open up some more, one-on-one opportunities, should put a lot of pressure off of him early on in his career. I think he has the quickness to, penetrate backfields as a pass rusher. I think that as a run defender, the spatial awareness, the ability to work his moves and, stack and shed at the point of attack shows up. You did sign Sheldon Rankins, who's a little bit more of, like that somewhat smaller but explosive upfield defensive tackle type. But I do think that, even bringing him in, I don't think that precludes or should, I don't think that should stop the Texans from taking a talent like Woods at 28 with the ceiling that he has for this late of a pick. I think especially you go to the 2024 tape with something special. So I'm going to take Woods here. I think this is a good opportunity to add potentially what's that missing piece on the defense. Yeah. Offensive line was certainly intriguing here, but I have faith in Ariante Ursary as a starting option at tackle this early in his career. Braden Smith, I think, is a good stopgap option. You could look for, a developmental type and, with one of their other picks early on in this draft, but I think the value of Woods is a little too high to pass up here.
Yeah, and I think the Houston Texans can get a guard at 38 and a center later on in this class too. So I don't mind passing on O-line here. And then I just think about Woods. You mentioned that 24-25 tape as a piece of dust goes right across my camera. Sorry if you saw that. But I also think about that tape was so good. And this year it felt like he kind of just gave up on that program, lack of better phrasing. But a place that won't let that happen, a place coached by D'Amico Ryans where you get to work with madmen named Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. They are just not going to let you give up. So yeah, I kind of think that's high key the best place possible for Peter Woods to just become potential special player. Ian, Kansas City Chiefs at 9, we went Caleb Downs, and it feels like, man, we talked a lot about tackle there, and Caleb Lomu, not to lead the witness here. He did an interview with Connor Rogers saying he's been training on both sides of the O line. So in a lot of ways, man, it feels like you got your pick made here, but Ihanachor is interesting too.
Yeah, Jan Shore is interesting, and the Senior Bowl was a really good selling point for him. He that first day, you were there too. That first day he was a little rough, a little shaky, but then he really caught his stride.
That's what makes you excited. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I think the pass set's really clean. But Caleb Lomu is the higher graded guy on my board. It's tricky, but I also look at Keldrick Falk. We just mentioned that he's definitely the Spags type of edge, right? I'm probably going to go, it's tricky. I'm going to go with Caleb Lomu here. You know, he's my highest graded offensive tackle remaining. You mentioned that he's been training at left and right side. I think, you know, I love the flexibility fail-safe. That's one thing that I look for a lot in offensive tackles. I first saw it with Joe Alt, right? You know, guys who are really good at playing with that controlled lean where their anchor is always in the right position, right? And they still have the balance to play like that and keep their hands engaged. And Caleb Lomu is one of those guys. But then in 2025, too, I think he showed, you know, one of my biggest knocks in the 2024 tape was that, you know, he wasn't the people mover in the run game that Spencer Fano was, right? I think Fano still has the edge there, but I think Caleb Lomu improved his power output at the point of attack, and he reaches his landmarks. He's very agile and nimble in zone blocking looks. He can get out in space. So, and again, the flexibility and leverage acquisition helps him out there too. So I think, again, Jake Matthews is the cop. I think you're looking at a really solid starter, a guy who can play the left or the right feasibly, you know, training at the right side. I think he can do it because, again, you know, when a guy hasn't played it before, you can still look for the traits that can help ease that transition, right? Athleticism is one, balance is one, flexibility is another, and also technical refinement. And I think Caleb Lomu fits that too. He can get a little bit stronger overall for sure, but I like the player, first round guy for me. And I think for the Chiefs investing in that line, you got Josh Simmons and Caleb Lomu. That's an athletic tackle duo. I think that's a really good component to build from.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like Lomo's gotten a little forgotten about as we're getting excited about Proctor again, and we're getting excited about free. Like, feel like Lomo's like, I'd take this guy in the first round. Like, he's 8 to 12 pounds of muscle away from being something really, really special.
For sure.
And to the point about him switching to the right side, the one thing about him was like his outside shoulder, outside hand isn't anything like crazy. It's not like a huge reason why he's good in pass protection. It's more of his feet. So to me, it was like I could see this guy making that flip to the right side because it's like not, you don't need that out. It's not like that's like a major strength and you don't want to mess with that. So I like that fit a ton. I will say Ian Ator though, just because you like must rush against Mahomes. Like Ian Ator, that's a good way to kind of like negate some of the pass protection work that's there to be done.
For sure.
But I like Lomo more. All that said. All right. Dolphins. We haven't gone corner yet, so I'm kind of looking at that. And part of me kind of wants to go Chris Johnson because I think Chris Johnson's going to go round one. And I also think like D'Angelo Pons, like I could see this team being like, hey, look, we're a collection of bad football players and we just need # good football players. And like D'Angelo Pons is like, no matter what, that guy's going to be playing for you. But I also don't want to go too far and get crazy with like the Avion Terrell slide.
I will say too, real quick, right? We talked about John Eric Sullivan coming from the Packers tree. They tend to favor speed and length and athleticism at the corner position, right?
So you're saying Chris Johnson, yeah.
Pons has the athleticism, but I wonder if John Eric Sullivan is going to have strict thresholds the same way that Brian Gutekunst does.
Or frankly, as much as like speed and size, yeah, it's a strength for Johnson. It sounds like Hood, frankly. Like when I look at these guys, like Hood's the guy that kind of most fits that. Let's go Colton Hood. It's also one I haven't mocked a whole lot of. So, and if what's his name, Jeff Hafley wants to get back to his Boston College roots, ran a lot of man coverage there at BC. Colton Hood definitely kind of checks that box. So I like that. Sure. I like that a good bit. All right, New England at 31. Jacob, take it away.
Jacob, I think you're muted.
Oh my God. It's been, how many years?
God, we haven't even second round yet. What is this about?
How many years we've been doing virtual videos and I still end up on mute? It's crazy. Yeah, that's gotta love it. But yeah, so I'm intrigued by a couple guys on this board. Honestly, I do think that the Patriots have a couple needs. They could use some additional pass rushing help. Keldrick Falk still being available, but I mean, historically, I don't know for sure like how good of a fit Keldrick Falk is for what Mike Vrabel has historically liked at the edge rusher position. I mean, you can kick him inside as well, but I don't know if he's so much an option for them here. They need receivers, but I'm iffy on the value that's available here at 31. I'd rather wait on that. And this is another guy, I don't know for sure if he's going to start right away in the NFL, but I do think that, you have Morgan Moses in the organization, at least for 2026. Who knows, how much longer he's going to be in the NFL, at 35, but you can work him along a little bit. So I'm going to I think this is where Maxi Hanator comes off the board. Obviously, I know you guys have talked about him as a potential option at a couple picks. The size, the athleticism, the length is all tremendous. Very, very, very rough around the edges. But I think that it's, considering how new he is to football, if he's further along than he has any right to be. So still raw by, NFL standards, but at the same time, I think that the upside's tremendous here. We saw Drake May get absolutely obliterated during the Super Bowl again by that Seattle defensive front. Uh, Give me Hanachor here as a guy who can, keep Drake May upright in the long term.
I like it. Plus, you see the clip of Vrabel and Ihanator hand fighting. Love to see it. And then, of course, I just got out of touch with Diana Rossini, so I couldn't ask her about it today. But I'll make sure I have her in the final mark. Ian, what do you want to do to round out round one?
Yeah, sorry. I didn't even. Sorry, real quick. I didn't even think about the clip of Vrabel being of Ihanator being the offensive lineman that Vrabel was hand fighting with. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. So it's like, oh, that's a perfect. You already know that if they make that pick, that clip is going to be circulating every single account's going to be tweeting about it. Every broadcast is going to be showing that. But
100%.
Yeah.
All right, Seattle to round out round one. What do you want to do here, my man Ian?
This is a tricky one, man, because I could go a number of different directions. And, it's a luxury to be in a position where you don't have to take a certain position. The Seahawks being where they are, Chase Basantis is a pick that I always like here. Guard from Texas A&M. I have a first round grade on him. I know he's more viewed as a early to mid day 2 guy in the consensus, but he can definitely get a little stronger. But he's got the athleticism, the flexibility, really good hand fighter and pass protection, and super flexible and rangy in the run game. I don't know if I'm going to go him here, though, because I know edge is another potential area to address long term. They got DeMarcus Lawrence, they've got Uchenna Nwosu, but neither of them are signed long term, I think 2027 at the most. And then you got Derek Hall as well. But there is going to be some turnover pretty soon here down the runway. And I think getting a guy with the upside to mold long term can be a good investment for them here at 32. Keldrick Falk is the elephant in the room, 19th overall player on our board, still available. We'll take him here. I think it's going to be a long haul with the pass rush development because he was definitely stagnant this past season. You want to see him implement more counter work, just deepen his pass rush bag overall. It's a lot of just straight power and then not a lot of adaptability when things don't go his way early in reps. He's got a rip move too that he can use with that lower body flexibility, the ankle flexion, and being 6'6", over 270 with over 34-inch arms. The dude has a power profile for days. I mean, this is the pure physical mold. Mike McDonald will be salivating. Now, it's just trying to get him to a ceiling that's the hard part. But I think learning from DeMarcus Lawrence and Uchenna Nwosu, I think having the veterans in that room who can help him along. And then, in a scheme that's pretty, diverse in terms of alignments, you do have a guy in Keldrick Falk who right away you can insert him as a strong side defensive end at 5 tech, and he can just sledge base blocks. He can beat down blocks and just pry through gaps to make plays behind the line of scrimmage. And then he's got the pursuit ability too. So I like the upside here. I like the alignment versatility that he brings to the table. And again, we talked about earlier, the football character. Everything you hear is that he's a hard worker. He likes, he's willing to get better and takes coaching. And I think there's a lot of upside here. And I think schematically he can be insulated in Seattle.
Yeah, and dude, I love this fit. This is one that I've been doing in pretty much 90% of my mocks, and Seattle fans are probably tired of it. But you look at him and then Tank Lawrence coming out of Boise State, and their bodies compare really, really similarly. And I think to your point, like Tank Lawrence is going to be around forever. I think this is kind of how you prepare for life without Tank Lawrence. This is the passing of the torch. And even play style wise, like how good Folk is against the run, like he totally fits that mold. So I love that fit. And I still think he's going to end up going round 1 too. All right, so we're into round 2. I was going to say, let's try to speed this up, but now I say that, and I have no idea where I'm going to go with this pick. We've gone edge and we've gone receiver. I will look at the cornerback well, and you know what? Actually, I'm going to steal Mike Renner's pick. We had him on for a mock. D'Angelo Pons' measurables are damn near identical to Aaron Glenn. So for funniest outcome possible, D'Angelo Pons, you are a New York Jet.
Let's do it. I like that.
Awesome. And then that takes us to Infante. What do you want to do here for the Cardinals? We still got Ty Simpson on the board, and at pick 3, we went Arvell Reese.
Let's see. I'll go Ty Simpson. I'm not going to overthink it. The comparison I've been using all pre-draft process is or at least since free agency happened, is the Giants from last year, where they had Russell Wilson, they had Jameis Winston, two veterans, solid, but neither of them are long-term options, and they still traded up and drafted Jackson Dart. The Cardinals, I could see as a potential trade up in a round one and take Simpson to be a kind of similar guy behind Brissett and Minshew. So to be able to take him without giving up future capital, I think makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And frankly, if you can get him the second round, it makes it easier to where if it looks really rough year one, you can just go ahead and turn the page and say, oh, yeah, well, we're in a spot to take Arch, Dante Moore, Lenore Sell. You can kind of turn the page on him pretty easily.
Oh, yeah.
Ian, what do you want to do here at 35? Tennessee, we went Ruben Bain in the first round.
This is a tricky pick here. Let's go. Can we check receiver?
Yes, absolutely.
Because I'm inclined to get a playmaker for Cam Ward. I think offensive line. You could go offensive line though. Let me check their line real quick. Just see
center and right guard. Brace for impact. It's a little bit of a scary sight.
Oh yeah, you weren't kidding. You know what? Actually, we're gonna go with center. We're gonna go with Sam Hecht from Kansas State.
Ooh,
He's my top center in the class. I love his range and zone looks, but then at the same time, has a pretty sturdy anchor and pass protection. So I think anytime you have a young QB, insulate the unit up front. Make sure that he's not running for his life on every play, and make sure that the running game can help take the load off as well. I think Sam Hecht helps with that.
Yeah, I like that a ton. Vegas Raiders, man, this is just a bad defense. So, I kind of love Christian Miller to this team, but also I look at their secondary and I'm like, oof, not where you want to be. So I'm kind of thinking Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Am I a little worried it's a little redundant with Jeremy Chin? Yes, but their other starting safety right now is Isaiah Polomo. Wow, sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and take Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. There are a lot of different good options there for the Raiders, but I'm gonna go EMW. All right, back to Infante here with the Giants. I'll give you a quick look at the receiver board just because we didn't do that. What did we do round one with the Giants? I'll spark you Sonny Styles.
Sonny Styles, yeah.
There we go.
So I'm a little bit bummed out because I was going to take McNeil-Warren for the Giants here if he was still available at 37. So now I got to pivot.
Would have been fun.
Yeah. So I think, receiver, though, there's still some good value that I like in that position. Stands out as an obvious need. I mean, they brought in Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin. There's depth there now, but you need a stronger wide receiver 2 type of guy. And you could go with upside. You could go with Chris Bell, but he's coming off an injury. You could go with Chris Brazzell, but the route tree is not all the way there.
Sure.
I'm going to go with a high floor receiver. Give me Jeremy Bernard. He's somebody I think is going to be he's going to be a consistent separator at the NFL level. Just a smooth athlete. He's not a burner necessarily, but he has the requisite speed to thrive in the NFL in that regard. Sure-handed, intelligent football player. I think he's going to be a really good complementary weapon for a long time, and those guys get paid a lot of money. So Bernard, I think, in the second round here would make a lot of sense for New York.
Yeah, I love this. I've done this a good bit too. To me, I think about Matt Nagy coming in as the OC, a lot of RPOs, a lot of yards after the catch. And I've kind of situationally comped Bernard to Juju Smith-Schuster the 2 years where AB was at the peak of his powers. And Juju just did enough of the little stuff to be an awesome number 2. And I almost, Malik Neighbors is a bona fide superstar. So situationally, I think Bernard is a Giant. He plays that Juju role perfectly. Ian, Houston Texans, we just went with Peter Woods at 28. How do you want to follow that up here at 38?
Yeah, real quick. I'm tracking on a separate tab. Can I see who the Jets picked real quick?
Yes, the Jets at the top of this second round took D'Angelo Ponds.
They took Ponds. That's right, the Aaron Glenn comp. Okay.
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Ty Simpson. Yeah, so the Texans here at 37. I know we got defensive tackle earlier. Jake Andrews is coming back as the starting center, but I do think they have room to potentially upgrade there. I don't know how the center board is looking though. It's a little because I know Hecht went to the Titans at 35. But Connor Lew is on the board. Again, it's a little bit of a reach on my board. I think Chase Besantis could also be a pick if you wanted and maybe experiment with him at the center spot. Oh, another one that I hadn't thought of. Okay, that's an interesting one. And he was taking center reps at the Senior Bowl for a little bit. And he's been practicing his snaps. I'm going to go with Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. We're going to go with the surprise pick. S-tier athlete, again, explosive, really heavy-handed, just a mauler mentality, but then a really sturdy center of gravity, great natural leverage, and then at the same time, too, I think being able to play square and pass protection, he's got that as well. So ideally, you can experiment with him, and he pays off as your center, and he can set the tone while also providing high-quality play.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the Chargers are like, no, that was supposed to be our guy at 55 or whatever. Yeah, honestly, has like a culture fit. The guy they had to tell to calm down at the Senior Bowl. Yeah, I feel like D'Amico Ryans might gravitate towards that guy.
For sure.
All right, Cleveland. We've gone Carnell Tate and Caden Proctor. I like going nickel with this team in this spot, and I'm going to go Avion Terrell. I don't really know what to make of that 4.6, 4.40. He plays faster than that for me on tape. I was kind of thinking mid 4.4s to maybe 4.5 flat. So I'm going to chart that one up to the hamstring injury, but he's just a good football player. And I think specifically like his willingness to tackle, 8 forced fumbles the last 2 years. You put this guy into the nickel. He's got that type of mentality that you need to play defense in Cleveland. So I think he kind of fits with their culture. I'll go Avion Terrell there at 39. Right, that leaves us to Jacob with Kansas City at 40. They're coming off the heels of taking Caleb Lomu at 29 after taking Caleb Downs at 9. So Downs to Lomu so far.
All right, so by rule, I have to take somebody named Caleb with the pick to keep the streak going, I guess.
Yep.
So
let's find you, Caleb.
Yeah, so
I guess you know what? Here's the easiest way to do it.
Caleb Douglas, Texas Tech.
Yeah, Caleb.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah. You do Banks, Tiernan, and then Douglas and on day 3.
Call it a day.
Yeah, call it a day. That's it. Yeah, just pick everyone the same name. That works. So, but yeah, no, I think I'm looking at Kansas City, and 2 needs stand out to me that haven't been picked yet. That's receiver and edge rusher. Let's see. Receiver, I mean, you have 2. I mean, you have Xavier Worthy, you have Rasheed Rice as like your top 2 guys. There's a possibility you bring back Tyreek Hill, but I don't know if they end up doing that just because he's not on the roster right now. I'm gonna look at edge here, see who's available there. So you have some talent for sure. Still some pretty good players available. I'm gonna shoot with upside though. I'm taking Malachi Lawrence. I think that maybe he's not as refined as some of the other guys still available on this list, but I think he is, he's got really long arms. He's explosive. I think his pass rushing arsenal is deeper than a lot of people like to admit. And as he improves as a run defender, I think that the physical tools are going to far outweigh any potential negatives that he has at this juncture in the draft. So I'll take that as your guy opposite George Karlaftis.
I like it a ton. I'm really bullish on Malachi Lawrence, and he's like minus 130 to go round 1 now. So like his hype has really picked up. All right, Ian, we got the Cincinnati Bengals back in the first round. What did we do? We had small trade back Dylan Thieneman at pick number 12. So got a couple of D tackles available here, and we also got some linebackers. So I'm curious what you want to do here with Cincinnati.
Yeah. And real quick on Malachi Lawrence, that Baylor game was where you really saw the full pass rush arsenal. He's got all of the tools, all of the moves, just again, the run defense. But again, the upside is through the roof. I think the Bengals, they got Dylan Thieneman. Love that pick. I'm going to go with the defensive line now, and it's a pretty easy discussion for me personally. I think there's a perfect fit on the board with Al Golden, who, this past year, he incorporated a little bit more odd front than what we've been accustomed to seeing at Notre Dame. But I think going back to the even front roots, I think a guy who can be a really good even front nose and orbit DT with the heavy hands, the really solid run defensibility, the gap integrity, but then also showing flashes as a pass rusher, Kristen Miller from Georgia. I think he's a really young, ascending player who, again, is going to make that line better day one, just having the violent presence that he does. So I think that line, like they got Jonathan Allen, they got BJ Hill, but they don't have a ton of young talent to build around. I think Kristen Miller gives them that.
Yeah, absolutely love that fit. And I'm going to stay on the defensive line. I'm going to go Lee Hunter here for New Orleans. We went receiver in the first round, and then I typically will go receiver here round 2. I just still love Chris Bell reuniting with Tyler Shuck. That being said, corner is tough for me to kind of pass on Chris Johnson potentially here, actually, now that I look at it. Let's see. God, I really don't love the idea of Devon Godshaw seeing significant playing time, nor Nathan Shepard. But I feel very similarly around Isaac Yadam. Like, I just, I think I'm going to have to go corner here. Let's go Chris Johnson. I think he's a really good football player. And again, another name that's really picked up steam, could easily be a first round type of guy. So instead of going corner followed by receiver, and which I do a lot of my mocks, we'll go the other way around. We'll go receiver in the first round, followed by Chris Johnson, round 2.
I think he's a really good fit in Brandon Staley's scheme as well.
I totally agree. His eyes and that scheme are going to play, and his athleticism for sure. All right, Infante, this was a part of our trade, but I'm going to still let you make this pick here at 43. What do you want to do here for 49ers? I think the guard options are a little bit better here, and you can also start to think about the receiver options. I like this board here at 43 a lot more than what we saw at 27.
I do too, for sure. And I'm looking at it. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I really like that guard value that you have available. I'm going to take Chase Pasantis here. He's my he's the second guard available on my board, or second guard overall on my board behind Venga Ioane. And I think that to be able to get him, I mean, he's not the flashiest athlete on tape, but you see just the, how refined he is, how powerful he is. I think him and Dominic Pooney together, that being the guard tandem in San Francisco, I mean, I think you can't go wrong with that.
100%. Couldn't agree more. All right, Ian. So back to the New York Jets. We just went D'Angelo Pons earlier this round, but before that gone, David Bailey and Jordan Tyson. What do you want to do here for the New York Football Jets?
Yeah, it's a tricky pick because I think after receiver and edge, there's a little more flexibility with what you can do, a little more flexibility with how you can play the board. Could get a guard here. DeSantis going one pick before me is a knife to the heart. I can't lie, it hurts, but I'll get over it eventually. Maybe it take a couple of years, but we'll get there. But I think if we're not going guard, I think there are a lot of potential tackle to guard converts later on in the draft, and another potential need that I do think they need to address is linebacker. They got Demario Davis as a veteran addition, but they don't have a ton outside of him. Jamie Sherwood regress, and it's probably not a long-term fit moving forward. I look at Jacob Rodriguez as a really good value add right here. And I think eventually when Demario Davis moves on, because he's a veteran, I don't think maybe 1 to 2 more years, right? But I think Jacob Rodriguez can fill the mic after that. And I think he's a guy who, again, gives you athleticism, is always around the ball. I mean, this dude is a pest, and then he's got really good coverage ability too. So Jacob Rodriguez, we're running in the card, and we're beefing up that second level defense.
I like it. I like it a lot. Let's see. Baltimore Ravens. We went Venga in round 1. I am looking at the receiver options here. Like, I still think they could use an X. I don't know if Chris Bell's ball skills are fully developed, though. Like, I feel like the way they used D-Hop was like, hey, oh my God, like, we just need this guy to make a tough contested grab for us. It's 3rd and 8. Need this guy to move the sticks for us. I don't know if Bell's game's quite there yet, even from a route tree perspective. I'm going to have some fun here. I'm going to go Eli Stowers here at 45. Freaky combine.
Okay.
And have him be Isaiah Likely. I'm going to have him be Isaiah Likely, get this guy into space, let his athleticism play. And he's not going to be a great blocker, but once he gets into space and it's really just about hitting a landmark, I wonder what you could do with him being, quote unquote, lead blocker for like Lamar Jackson on QB power, or like leading the way for Derrick Henry. A lot of fun possibilities here. I'm going to go Eli Stowers for the Baltimore Ravens.
I did not expect that. That's interesting. I'm
here to keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
I like that. And so I'm next with the Buccaneers here.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So round 1.
You said Mesidor?
Yeah, we went Mesidor round 1.
Okay. So I'm looking now. I mean, Stowers coming off the board. There's solid tight end value. I wouldn't go with this early. I like what I see at linebacker, but corner, I see one name that really stands out. That's Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. I think he's somebody who can step in and start right away for Tampa Bay. Excuse me. There's talent there. I mean, Zion McCollum, Benjamin Morris, and Jacob Parrish. But at the same time, I think you watch that secondary from last year. It was very just inconsistent, and specifically, I think, Zion McCollum had some ups and downs. Morrison didn't have a very good rookie year. Jamel Dean's gone now. And I mean, the hope is that, you get a guy like Morrison or Parrish to be able to, step in. Parrish may be more of a nickel guy potentially, but I don't know. I think the value of Cisse is too good to pass up here. I think he's going to be my pick here at 46.
I was going to take him at 48 for the Falcons if you didn't. So, frankly, you're also just sniping a division rival there. So, good on you for taking away all my fun there. All right, Ian, what do you want to do here for the Indianapolis Colts?
I'm thinking edge at first, but then I remembered they did invest in their depth at the edge position a lot. They still need a long-term starter opposite Latu, but their linebacker core is completely barren. I think I need to go linebacker here, and Anthony Hill Jr. is an elite physical talent. I think there's a lot of promise there. I do think he can continue to improve his discipline against misdirections and also his take-on technique against blocks coming downhill, but he's got the size, he's got the length, he's got volcanic range. The blitzing utility, and then he's actually really good in coverage too. I think that part of his game is understated. I think he does have good eyes, good fluidity, and closing speed as well. So we're gonna go with Anthony Hill Jr., and he is gonna give some very compelling developmental upside for the Colts.
And I think that's honestly also just a Chris Ballard play, sort by RAS.
Oh yeah,
go to the top, and then boom, there's Anthony Hill Jr.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh man, Atlanta. So this is a little different. I typically go corner here and then follow it up with like receiver, like Ted Hurst in the third. And I think that's still a spot where they could probably get him. You could also just do it here. I'm also like, could this be the Chris Bell spot? Like, I think they need an X and they need someone with speed. And Bell brings that, but Brazel and Hurst might be the other options there too. So I don't know. There's depth at receiver, and that's part of why I'm like, maybe you wait.
Yeah, for sure.
I might go Keith Abney here. Hold on, what's this team's linebacker room looking like too? Because I wonder if
they've got Divine Diablo, and they signed Christian Harris as well. Yeah.
And the other thing is too, like elephant in the room, James Pierce probably not playing football ever again. I don't know. That's a murky situation. I'm no lawyer, so. But Mike Hughes is slotted to play outside corner, backed up by C.J. Henderson. And if it was 2016, maybe that wouldn't scare me. What year was C.J. Henderson? 2018, 2019 draft? 2018? Yeah, I can't remember now. If it was 2018, that wouldn't scare me as much, but it scares me a little bit right now. I'll go.
They are such a tough team to mock for, man. Every time I do a 7-round mock, I freeze at 48, and I'm like, what do? I don't know. And there's long-term needs too, like Caleb McGarry retiring. I know they signed Jawan Taylor, but you think about offensive tackle with both their guys being older. Like,
yeah, that's a good point too.
So many avenues, man.
I'm gonna go Keith Abney. I'm just gonna say one of these three guys is available for you in the third round: Ted Hurst, Chris Brazel, or Bryce Lance. And like you just need an X who can stretch the field. Right now, they just have a lack of an X body type, and then also like a lack of speed with Mooney being gone. So I'm going to say you can go get that burner somewhere else. I'm going to stick to my blueprint and go corner here at 48 because I just think it's AJ Terrell and then a whole lot of nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and tap into that corner keg right quick. Infante, what do we want to do for the Vikes here at 49?
So there's one pick in particular that I'm looking at here. I think the Vikings need a space eater against the run. Looking at their interior defense, I like Jalen Redmond a lot. I think he's one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the league right now. But him being a little bit smaller, him being a little bit more of a speed guy, I think you need just some pure beef up front. And there's one guy I've noticed that's available that fits that bill. That's Lee Hunter.
Love it.
So as much as it pains me to give him that pick as a Bears fan, I think that Hunter at 49 would make a lot of sense. I mean, just as just a gigantic human being, a guy who plays with relentless demeanor when you watch him on tape. And I think that, he didn't test insanely well at the combine, but I think his size adjusted quickness, like you see, he can be incredibly disruptive from time to time, not just as a, disruptor as a run defender in opposing backfields, but also as a pass rusher. So I'll go Hunter here. I think that's a good addition for their defense.
Hunter is my DT2, and Jordan Reed has comped him to Kevin Williams this entire cycle. So, it's just too perfect. You get half the Williams wall right back. Or, sorry, Pat Williams, not Kevin Williams, but the point still stands. You get him back in Minnesota. Love to see it. All right, Ian, I don't want to lead the witness again, but Zion Young feels like a perfect Lion type. But I'll let you make the pick here. What do you want to do here at 50?
I'm going to go with another guy I was thinking is the perfect Lion type at edge. I'm going to go Gabe Akis. I think Gabe Akis, again, the character, the workman-like approach, former wrestler, so he has a good understanding of leverage, and it shows up on film. And I think he's got a higher floor right out of the gate. I think 6'4", 260, over 33-inch arms, good power profile, great explosion. But then also the pass rush bag where he can execute swims, long arms, bull rushes, chop rips as well. And he's got enough cornering ability and ankle flexion where he can kind of capitalize on those angle advantages after getting upfield with his burst. So I like Gabe Bacchus a lot. They've needed a compliment to Aiden Hutchinson for who knows how long. It feels like it's been ever since they drafted him. Finally not neglecting that. I think Gabe Bacchus, I like the upside with Zion Young. I think teams will have to vet the off-field stuff with the DUI arrest this past winter. And then also I do think Zion Young, we see him pop up in first round mocks. It's a little rich for me. I think the pass rush production is a lot more, hustle power than it is refinement. I think he needs to keep expanding his arsenal. And I do think he's a little stiff in the hips. I think that reduces, that kind of minimizes a little bit of what he can do. I think Gabe Bacchus gives you a more vast rush palette. And then he's also a high level run defender out of the gate.
No, I like it a lot. Also, that takes us to Carolina. Honestly, I think this team could still go linebacker, even though they brought in Devin Lloyd. I was never a Trevin Wallace guy, so that's kind of why I'm thinking that. This would have been a great Keith Abney spot, a guy who could play nickel right away, but maybe projects his long-term outside corner option just as Mike Jackson gets a little older. But I'm going to go with an honorable mention here for Traden Stukes. He's the perfect Kobe Bryant replacement for Seattle. So as much as I would love to have Traden sit here and be the Kobe Bryant replacement, I am kind of thinking they need a nickel corner or a guy who can play free safety and replace Nick Scott. And I like Lathan Ransom as a box safety, so you could move Trayvon Merrick to strong free safety, excuse me. But the other thing is, I don't know what other options here I love. Ooh, you know what? Maybe I do. I'm going to go Caleb Banks. Banks might fall. I'm pulling the Trevor Stickaway here, leading you the one way. I'm the last second pivot the other way.
That felt like an impulse pick, man. You scrolled over to him and just bam, took it.
I think if he didn't break his foot right after the combine or during the combine, he would have been like a consistent, I'm taking this guy at 19 on. And I am not a Caleb Banks guy right now. He's like 56 on my board. Even during the Senior Bowl, he was like 38 at that time. I've just been the guy who's like, I'm going to let someone else take that swing. That's cool. But here in the second round, man, I'm not a Turk Wharton guy, so I'm just like piling this defensive tackle room of guys I just don't really give a shit about. But I think Caleb Banks, his pass rush upside next to Derek Brown, I mean, that could be like a whole lot of fun there for that D-line. So selfishly keeping Traden Stukes available for the Seattle Seahawks. So Jacob, sorry, your pick's already been made at 64. But
that's a tough part of playing GM for
all 32.
It's 3D chess, man. It really is.
I still think they could go that direction, but I've always been a Trayvon Merrick guy, and I think Lathan Ransom's a solid box safety too. So I think there's enough infrastructure there of pieces I like versus I'm not a Turk Wharton guy, so we could get him out of there. And frankly, the fact they have Turk Wharton might be a good way to ease in Banks, right? You have a rotation, you don't have to play it full time, something like that. So, anyways, leaving the Panthers, I give Jacob another NFC North team. This actually worked out perfectly. Not only you draft for the Bears, you're drafting for every one of your division rivals.
This is a perfect opportunity to just take a kicker each time. You could have sabotaged him, but you didn't. I don't know, man. He's not beating the double agent allegations.
We're taking my long snapper one.
I remember there's one time a couple of years ago, I took in the first round for the Green Bay Packers, I took Connor Bazelak, the quarterback out of Bowling Green, in the first round, just because it's I hate the Packers. It's I want to make the worst possible pick for them as possible. No disrespect to Connor Bazelak, he's still in the NFL. He's on the Bucks, I think, is a third stringer. He's getting some good money, but no, my well-documented journalistic integrity prevents me from doing that here. So I'm looking at the Packers here. There's some pretty good value at edge. I think corner is the bigger need for them, but I don't know. As far as outside cornerbacks go, I don't love the value here. I think at edge, there are a handful of talented players still available, and particularly for a base 4-3. I think there's one guy who has the speed and the flexibility who could fit well. According to this board, it would be a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to take him anyway. I'll take R. Mason Thomas for the Green Bay Packers. And, Lucas Van Ness is projected to step into a bigger role now with Rashawn Gary out in Green Bay. But at the same time, I have my concerns about, just the consistency really hasn't been there for Van Ness, especially what you expect out of a first round pick. So I think our Mason Thomas gives them some, some quickness, some flexibility, some finesse. Again, very much a situational pass rusher. He's a different type from Van Ness, who's a little bit more power based, but I think, again, different flavors in that pass rushing group would really help out that defense.
I like it a ton. I like it a lot. And LVN felt like he took a step forward last year, but still, like, you would watch this team after the Parsons trade and expect more pass rush juice, but it felt like it was like Parsons or bust. So I like just getting some like guaranteed pass rush juice infused into that defense alongside Micah. So I like that a lot.
And our Mason Thomas is real quick. Our Mason Thomas is the unique one. Like at that build, I do think he has good speed to power for that.
Yeah.
So I think he can build off of that for sure.
All right, Ian, don't mess this up. Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I'm feeling the pressure already. Even before you announced the pick, man. Oh, I need to make this right. I'm feeling offensive line. I know
we do have a giant hole at left guard right now, so not to leave the witness here, but.
Yeah, I see you moving the cursor there. Venga Iowani, I know, was a coveted asset in round 1. We didn't manage to get him, but I think Emmanuel Pregnon is a really good value here. I think we just got to take him. He's again not quite as high as Chase Besantis on my board, but that's he's a little stiff in the hips, and I think that affects his redirections. But at the end of the day, what are you looking for at guard more than anything else? Physicality, winning in a phone booth. I think Emmanuel Pregnon fits that to a T. He's got the length. He's got super heavy hands, incredible mauling physicality, but then also an explosive linear athlete who has pretty good second level range too. And he's got a strong anchor in the pass game. I think Pregnon, Zach Frazier, that's a really good duo. And then Mason McCormick is an ascending player. And then Troy Fatanu, you got Broderick Jones, who we don't know what the long-term outlook is, but in the immediate timeline, I think the Steelers offensive line looking a lot better with this pick.
You have passed the test. That was the right pick.
Let's go.
So for Philadelphia here, 54, I do give some thought to safety, but at pick 68, 98, I think you could have some options available to you there that I like. I'm a big Sakeem Wheatley guy, and I'm also a VJ Payne guy. I take him in the top 100 to be completely honest with you. So I don't have to go Halsey here, or I think Kamari Ramsey would be a really good scheme fit. We went offensive line round 1. If you're going to replace AJ Brown, I mean, here's Chris Bell. Like, you're going to take on that assignment. That would be the body type to do it. But I also think about this team, and they still need pass rush, and they keep bringing Brandon Graham out of retirement. Is that like power rusher, speed to power guy? So, oh man, I'm between Zion Young and TJ Parker here. I'll go Zion just because it feels like we've let him. I don't know. To me, TJ's the guy who's a little bit more. He could be the stand up or hand in the dirt guy. To me, like Zion's a little bit more just like I'm gonna play this guy hand in the dirt. What do y'all think? Better fit for the Eagles, Zion or TJ?
Schematically, I would say probably TJ. I think if you want to bank on athletic traits, Zion Young gives you a higher athletic ceiling. But TJ Parker, I think his ceiling gets understated a little bit. I don't think he has an elite physical ceiling, but again, I think he has great baseline explosion. I think he's got functional bend. Not elite but functional. And then the power profile as well is, it's not elite, it's functional, it's quality. My comp for him is Sean Phillips, who played for the Chargers in the 2000s and was a really solid starter, right? Not anything, groundbreaking, but, had pass rush production, was solid against the run. And, I think if you can get consistent buy-in from TJ Parker, which hopefully now that the NFL is his prime focus, right? Obviously, you mentioned it with Peter Woods, the buy-in for that entire Clemson defense was a little inconsistent this past year. But the Eagles, they have the veterans in the room. I'd like to think that you can get the best out of him, and the best is a quality starter.
Yeah, it's not really a great comp, but like situationally, I've just decided that like Jared Verse is Die Hard and TJ Parker is the Die Hard 2 to that. Where like it doesn't make sense why Jared Verse is like so good winning one way. And like Die Hard, like a great movie, and you watch it, you're like, why is this movie so awesome? Because it's just awesome in everything it does, and it wins in that one fantastic profile. And then like the second movie is just a reprint, just in a different location, and not quite as cool. So I'm gonna go with TJ Parker at my Die Hard 2. The first being Die Hard.
That was the analogy I didn't know I needed to hear. That was good.
I'm happy to provide it. Chargers at 55. So this is a brutal break because none of the offensive linemen are here, and like I'm not a Jennings Dunker guy, so I'm gonna firmly pass on that one. So, dude, wow. We have kind of obliterated all the options here for the Chargers. We already went defensive line, right? That's what we did back at, Cassius Howell at 22. Okay.
Yeah.
Some rumors of a Quentin Johnston trade, so that's kind of interesting. Like if they did do that, Chris Bell would be an interesting name for that. I do think they could get better at safety, but do you do that here? This is kind of a brutal spot to find yourself.
You could go, hey, Traden Stukes is on the board. I know he's listed as a corner in the MDS, but he can play free safety. Traden Stukes would be a very intriguing fit here.
And with just how much that they move those guys around. All right, well, we were trying to make Traden Stukes. We were trying to make him a Seattle Seahawk, but
wait, whose pick is this? Who has the button?
This is me.
I don't think I have the button. Okay, you have the button.
Yeah,
so it's up to you.
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. It's me. I'll go Traden Stukes there because I do think free safety wise, or I mean, you know what? Let's make it happen. Sorry,
no, you can't rescind the button. You can't do that.
I'm gonna go AJ Halsey. I'm gonna go AJ Halsey.
Right.
Just making two Traden Stukes available.
I see what you're trying to do, TJ. I see
the physicality. Yeah. Again, I'm playing 5D chess here. This is not how it works in the NFL draft, but we're having fun. I'm gonna go AJ Halsey. I think the physicality and his like football IQ, all that kind of fits within what they would ask. And a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 4. I think that would be a good scheme fit for Halsey. So I'll go AJ Halsey to keep my Traden Stukes to the Seahawks.
I do like that fit. That's a good fit.
If you're not going to do Stukes, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would go Halsey, but I do have Stokes, the higher rated player on my board. So like, I understand. I'm going against my own self here. But all right, pick 56, Jacob. I'll leave. One of my favorite fits is Grayson Halton to the Jags. You don't have to do it here, but if you wanted to, you'd make my day. But what do you want to do here for Jacksonville? Also, a huge needed linebacker, like offensive line, still an option here. So really, options of plenty here for Jags.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that board and I do like Grayson Halton a lot with that pick. I think that Jacksonville, where they're at right now, they could use just some just pure speed. I think along the interior defensive line, looking at who they have right now. I mean, Eric Armstead, he's been in the league for a while, maybe doesn't have as much juice as he used to, but even then, he's a taller guy, not necessarily someone who's going to win with consistent pad level, being the lower man at the point of attack. I think Halton would do a much better job of that, fitting that kind of mold as someone who can penetrate the, opposing backfields. And again, he's a guy you rotate in early on, but I think you have, different body types, your taller guys with Eric Armstead and Mason Smith, and then, you bring Devon Hamilton into the mix as well. I think Halton would give them some explosiveness along that interior. And I think on passing downs, having Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, and Grayson Halton along your defensive line, and then, pick, whoever you want as that other interior guy. I think that'd be a lot of fun for them. So Grayson Halton, I was thinking that as well. I think that'd be a good pick for him.
It does feel like there's like a good little form. I think this is also what Dane Brugler did in his mock. Somebody else just put out a 2-round mock with Halton go to the Jags. So I'm like trying to slowly cultivate this fit. So I appreciate you working with me here. All right. Ian, do the honors here for Jacob. What do you want to do with Chicago Bears? Let's go back to round 1. What did we do for Chi-Town? I believe
that was
Jermod
McCoy. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of fell into our laps there. So
That's
really,
right.
world's your oyster here. Ian.
And I will say, I'll jump in real quick as a Bears guy, that defensive line was bad. So I don't want to steer you one way or the other.
I was already
thinking.
I think we're thinking the same thing. Now, first off, TJ, I did not sign up to answer to both of you on this pod, trying to please you with the Steelers pick, and then Jacob with the Bears pick. I'm feeling so much exorbitant pressure right now.
This is actually a trap.
You guys you entrapped me for sure. No, but I think we're thinking of the same one. Zion Young. I think he's a good scheme fit. Again, we talked about Dennis Allen, even front. When he does have a nose tackle, it's like an Andrew Billings type who's can puncture in one gap a little bit. And I think Zion Young has the physical framework to complement Montez Sweat really well. Again, you got to vet the off the field for sure, but on the field, the motor is not an issue. It's go all the time. And again, I mentioned the pass rush. Even though I'd like to see more development, the power profile is there. The ability to use this length on the chase or to occlude passing lanes is there. You have the explosion, all of those things, the agility and twitch, all of those things are at a very high caliber. So I think the developmental upside is stark. And then in the run game, he's already providing a pretty high floor there too. So Zion Young, I think this pick infuses your line with talent and allows you to start to ride that track up.
No, I mean, to be honest, it wouldn't shock me if Zion Young turned into being the pick in round one, like once we got there.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you. Real easy one for me with the 49ers here. We went O-line at 43. Chris Bell here. His yards after the catch ability, home run fit. And I think with Pearsall, honestly, I would just play Chris Bell as your slot receiver, kind of just ease him in. If you need to expand that route tree, and frankly, just like his best games at Louisville are just like stockpiled with shallow cross drags, and just play that, just run that play over and over and over again if you want to get Chris Bell the ball, and I think you'll have a whole lot of success there in that Shanahan offense. So I like that fit, and I love the fact they got him at 58 here. That worked out really well for us. All right, Mr. Infante, back to the Houston Texans at 59. We've gone O-line and D-line, I think, to this point. Yes, Peter Woods, Keelan Rutledge.
Yeah, so that I think that's a good start for Houston for sure. I mean, you need to build in the trenches if you're, in that sort of situation, and I think these first two picks have done a really good job of doing that. I'm looking at linebacker here, honestly, because I think that, so there's one guy on there that I'll mention I'm higher on than the rankings, I'd say, at this stage, but let's see. And again, I don't love the day 2 value at tackle. I would consider that if there was good value, but I don't necessarily think it's amazing. At 59, maybe you could go Caleb Tiernan here. Could go center as well. You took Keelan Rutledge. I know we talked about him. Maybe he's the guy at center. So I'm going to stray away from the interior offensive line and just say it's going to be Wyatt Teller, Andrews/Rutledge, and then Ed Ingram in 2026. I'm going to go with Jake Golday here, where he's someone I think from a physical perspective has all the tools in the world to be an impact player. I think it's an interesting story where he started off as an edge rusher who's 190 pounds coming out of high school as a senior, played at Central Arkansas for a little bit, bulked up, moved to off-ball linebacker, which is weird. You usually don't think, okay, I'm going to bulk up as an edge rusher so that I can prepare to move to off-ball linebacker. But that's what happened with Golday, and now he's 6'4", 240 pounds, and moves incredibly well. I love the upside he brings in coverage, just how smooth and fluid he is, moving around in space at the second level. I think his instincts took a big jump in 2025 as well. So I'm going to go with Golday here.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, Ian, the trap has been set for you once again.
Bro,
Careful.
Oh my God. What are we doing here? This is a setup, man. I didn't sign up for this.
I'll take this pick from you for 50 cents. I'll give you 50 cents.
There you go. That's right.
You know what? No, I'm going to stand up to the trap. I'm going to take it.
Right.
You can keep your quarter. You can keep your $50. I had to think. Okay. I had to think about that, man. What the heck? I'm going to go. But partly the reason I want to take this pick, I want to shed light on a sleeper who I like a lot. I know he's probably not going to go this high. I could see him going day 2 though, for sure. And he's actually my second highest remaining DT graded on the board, and that's going to be Louisville's Renee Conga. I think one thing that can always play at the next level is elite explosion and contact authority inside. And obviously, if the Bears were to make this pick, I think you got to double up with an even front nose on day 3. Devontae Capehart from Clemson, Nick Barrett from South Carolina would be some really good options. But Renee Conga, man, 6'3", 299, over 33-inch arms, 37-inch vertical, and I think over a 10-foot broad. So 99th percentile explosion. And what you see on film at Louisville is him doing a lot of the dirty work where he's occluding gaps and penetrating and rerouting entire offensive plays and kind of funneling runners to other defenders. And then in the pass rush phase, even though he's a little raw, that power profile really plays. And also he can encumber double teams. There were a lot of times where he's drawing a combo block and maintaining the point. So I like Renee Conga a lot. He's got the athletic upside to be a really, really impactful player on the interior. Obviously, you need an even front nose to go along with him. But I think for the Bears, he's my 82nd overall player, so worthy of day 2 capital. I think the ceiling is worth investing in at a certain price and just shedding light on the guy. I think he's very underrated.
I like it. Bringing new names to the table here in a round, round 2 of a mock. That's exactly what we're here to do. I love it, Ian. LA Rams. This is a tough one. For the sake of the fact my wife just put in a dinner order, I got to speed up. I'm going to go Chris Basil. I feel like they could still use a little bit of speed. And I also just think about like Brazel right now, my working comp is Martavis Bryant, but he's about 12 pounds of muscle short of that. And like you see that in his play strength. But if you could get up to 210, 212 versus 195, I think he really could be that Martavis Bryant type player, add some speed in that offense, kind of be a bigger version of Tutu Atwell in a lot of ways. So, and then plus you got to prepare for life post Devontae Adams. So I'd be curious what Adams could rub off on Chris Brazel. So I'll go Brazel there at 61. I think that's pretty good value. All right,
Let's
Mr.
see.
Infante, your last pick.
Here you go. All right. Okay, so I better make it count. Denver's interesting to me because, I mean, yeah, you lost John Franklin Myers in free agency to Tennessee. I don't necessarily love the interior value here, especially if you're looking for a one-to-one replacement type for Franklin Myers. I think, like your top guys, Dominic Orange, Daryl Jackson Jr., that's more, power-based type of guys than someone who's going to, they're more run-oriented, in my opinion, than someone who's going to generate pressure and, wreak havoc the way that Franklin Myers did in the past game. I'm looking at tight end here, and I think that you can go one of two ways. I think you can go with the production with Max Clare, or you can go with the upside with Oscar Delp. I think either one you could argue for, and I wouldn't bat an eye. I have a sense that Oscar Delp is going to go higher than a lot of us might anticipate. So I'm going to go with Delp here. I think, the production at the collegiate level wasn't incredible, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily to a fault of his own. I think that he's experienced as an inline, an inline blocker. He's someone who can play in the slot. Freakish athleticism that shows up on tape, especially you get him out in space, have him on the flat, and he gets a little bit of room to work with. He can outrun a lot of defenders. Utilize him on the seam. He has the speed to be able to do so. So I like Delp here. I think I was really thinking Claire. But I kind of talked myself into, all right, I think they're going to bet on upside with this particular pick. And I think if you have an offense where, you just brought in Jalen Waddle. So if you have Bo Nix being able to throw to Jalen Waddle, Cortland Sutton, Oscar Delp, throw Troy Franklin into the mix there as well. Marvin Mims on occasion too. I think that's a really deep group of pass rushers. So I think that, and Delp can help out in, on rundowns too. So I think that'd be a good fit for, a well-rounded guy with some serious upside as a receiver as well.
And Sean Payton's not afraid to draft ahead of like consensus, right? Like RJ Harvey went earlier than expected. Pat Bryant went earlier than expected. So Delp's the guy. He's going to pull the trigger on it. All right, Ian, one more pick for you. No one's favorite team. What do you want to do here with the Pats?
Well, I don't know. Trading Stooks is looking pretty compelling. No, your pick is safe. I think I'll go with looking at the Patriots. They signed Romeo Doubs in free agency. They've got Kayshon Boutte as a really good one-on-one guy who can capitalize on 50-50 balls. But past that, Mac Hollins is a rotational role player. Who's really just a utility guy in my opinion. I don't think there's a ton of starting utility there, and especially after losing Stephon Diggs, and rightly so. Like I think they definitely need more dynamic ability, more 3-level ability. I'm going to go with Antonio Williams from Clemson. I think he gets slept on in this class. He's a guy who's around average size, but again, is a really twitched up, fluid, agile route runner with great STEM IQ. He can beat press. He can play outside or inside. He's really good on schemed rack targets in the short range, but then at the same time too, can use targeted physicality to scrape by second level STEM physicality too. So I'm a big fan of what he brings to the table. I think in terms of having a Josh Downs-esque separation savant, for Drake May, I think that can be a really good thing. And also giving him easy targets, right? Because I know that Romeo Doubs has that vertical ability. I think Antonio Williams gives you that 3-level utility that can help open up your offense all the way.
Well, yeah, funny you mentioned Downs. He's been my comp for Williams this entire cycle since summer. And one of the guys who make him a top 100 pick was Drake May. So I love that through and through. And of course, like we've been teasing, trading Stooks. I mean, that is the perfect Kobe Bryant replacement. So he probably could have come off the board a few different spots. I very nearly took him for the Panthers in the second round with that pick at 50. I think, 50. So, he probably could have gone a little earlier, but for the sake of the Seahawks, Falk plus trading Stooks, I mean, that's freaking awesome. So showcasing each and every pick one more time. But now, of course, I also want to give it over to our awesome co-host who joined us today. Ian, Jacob, really appreciate you guys carving out almost 2 hours of your time here in the middle of the week. So appreciate you guys coming on. First time we've done a 3-man mock, but I want to turn it over to you guys. Where can the good people find all of y'all's work?
I'll go if we're doing in order of the slideshow we got going on here for I don't know, whatever you call that, synchronicity. I don't know. I'm blanking on the word. I'm not.
That's a good word. That's it. We'll go with that.
Yeah, sure.
I know one of those words.
But yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Jacob Infante 24. My NFL draft stuff over at PFSN. Me, Ian, and Cam Meller. We're all going live on the day of the draft. Live reacting, debating all of our picks. We're going to be doing some challenges throughout the day as well. And, whoever loses the debates is going to have to suffer the consequences. So I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be a lot of fun. You can find some of my, Bears work over at Windy City Gridiron as well. But yeah, that's where you guys can find me. So really appreciate you having me on the show.
And then you can find me at IC_draft on Twitter. My draft stuff is also PFSN. I help run the mock draft simulator. Ben and Kent Lee Platty and James they do a ton of great work behind the scenes. I help with the rankings updates and the reports. And we're rolling over to 2027 right when the draft is over. So we'll have that ready. Stay tuned for that. A lot of fun storylines for that class already. But yeah, like Jacob said, we're going to be live all through the draft, all 3 days, instant reactions to picks, and also some pretty cool challenges, cool question mark challenges. It's gonna be fun though. It's gonna be exciting. We hope you guys tune in.
Definitely go check out all their work. If you watch my stuff, then you absolutely need to be keeping up with all their stuff. These are 2 guys I look up to, so highly recommend all their work. And I'll plug one other thing at Ian's potential expense if you're watching this late in the video. Not to spoil too much, but Football Debate Club come out, I believe, Friday when we're launching this mock draft. So if you like this banter maybe between these 3, I'd encourage you to go check that out. It's worth 15-20 minutes of your time if you're asking me. It's a fun little back and forth between Ian and I talking about the quarterback class this year, historically, all that stuff. I'll leave it at that. I'll let the viewers check that out and see who comes out on top. But Ian's been really good at those videos. So
I don't know, TJ, you're pretty chipper right now. I think we can tell. Now he got the edge on me this time.
I'm just a positive loser.
Just a beacon of joy.
Exactly. When I lose to someone like Ian Cunningham, I mean, it's really an honor. Thank you for the belt to ass. No. I encourage everyone to go check that out. It was a great conversation, kind of talking about quarterbacks, and it was great to be on with the PFSN guys and Cam. So highly encourage that live stream during the draft too. That's gonna be awesome. That you guys are doing that, and you might even have me bothering you guys on day 3. So we'll iron out all those details and whatnot later. But thank you again, guys, for joining us for this 2-round mock draft. Thank you again to Jacob and Ian for giving us 2 hours of their time. That's going to do it for this episode of Beyond the Tape. Until next time, we are signing off.